again, all you wonderful friends out there in podcast land. Well, Paul Heyman's phone is disconnected, but not as disconnected from reality as Uncle Dave Meltzer is. And can Netflix connect the fans to Raw in January? It's the sorry, wrong number edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. And joining me, of course, you've got his number. Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's never wrong, he's never sorry, and he got everybody's number. The great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. That's the other one. For another fun week of wrestling talk. We have like topics galore this week.
Yeah, but and we already had notes. Notice I said you're never wrong with the numbers. I didn't say anything about the notes.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, read into it what you will. Sorry, Wrong Number was one of Mama Cornette's favorite movies. Are you an aficionado of the film noir classic that is Sorry, Wrong Number?
I am not. Tell me about it.
You have not watched this fine feature motion picture starring Barbara Stanwyck. Does that give it away? You've seen it, you just don't know the title.
Hence, when I said I have not seen it, I have not seen it.
Oh, come on.
You come on.
It was based on an old radio show, it wasn't an inner sanctum, but one of the radio dramas back in the golden age of radio. And this woman is an invalid. And she's in bed and she's in a swanky place. She's very swanky. She's talking like this, Barbara Stanwyck in the early 40s. And her husband goes out of town on a business trip and she's there alone, and somehow the nurse has to leave, and she is always on the telephone because she's bedridden, and she's a drama queen, and she's a hypochondriac, you can tell. And she's also probably pretty bossy, right? But since it's all her money and her husband is working for a living. But anyway, she gets on the phone. Got one of those princess phones that the big glory. Well, not. I guess those were the princess phones. Were the little teenage phones in the 70s.
Is this a Tony Storm writing session? What is this?
Well,
let's go, RJ. What's going on?
I'm pretty sure that RJ City would have scripted some Sorry Wrong Number into this if he'd have thought of it. She's got one of those elaborate phones that they used to have in the 40s, and she's on the phone. And she gets the lines crossed, and she hears a murder being plotted between two surly-sounding characters. And then she immediately, and this is why Mama Cornette loved it, because she remembered these days. But I've always wanted to live in the time where you could pick the phone up and just talk to the operator in person, just immediately.
Why?
Wouldn't that be cool? Because she's sitting there. Oh, operator, I've just heard the most ghastly conversation between these two horrid men planning some sort of crime. And I want you to get me that number back immediately. Well, I didn't call them. I was trying to make a phone call, and the lines were somewhat mixed up. Surely you can get to the bottom of this. I'm sorry, madam.
Oh, boy.
But unless you give me the number, I cannot connect you to your party. It was all so terribly...
Timeless Jim Cornette.
Well, it was also so terribly
You're right. It was terribly.
No, it was so terribly chic, is what it was. So anyway, come to find out,
The terrible chic.
Wouldn't you know who won the pony? That the murder she was hearing plotted was her own.
Oh wow, that's a twist.
Yes, and there's a whole thing where other people get involved, and there's an investigator and a blah, blah, blah.
What did she do? Why did she piss people off so much?
Oh, well, you see, I don't want to spoil the whole movie.
I'm not watching it. I'm not going to watch it.
Well, somebody out there is gonna. Sorry, Wrong Number with Barbara Stanwyck. And Mama Cornette recommends it, like the guy on Seinfeld. What was his name? Remember the video store episode? Where Elaine fell in love with the guy that was making the pics. And
what was his name? Fuck.
Come to find it, Vincent.
That's right.
It was Vincent's pics, and come to find out he was like a 14-year-old pimply-faced kid that had her bring him a gallon of vodka and a carton of cigarettes. But folks, we're going to do some great fucking radio here today, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. That's right.
Because this is one of those days. Listen to all this. I've got pads. I've got notes. I've got emails. But I have no order. No order to this chaos. We're just going to pick things off the list and talk about it. Because I've had one of those weeks. And so today I'm going to adopt it. Well, it's been a long week. See, my last week never ended for me. It's been so long. So I don't care if we don't actually do a professional program here today. We're going to just pick and grab at it. I don't care. I don't care what they think of me. It won't be distressful if I'm not successful, 'cause I don't care. 'Cause I've had to face mortality again, Brian. I'm getting older. I'm having to give up all of... you got to give up at one point or another in your life. You start out not being able to do anything but eat, cry, and shit. And then you end up the same way. And in between, you pick things up that you like to do, and then you slowly have to give them up. Now, a lot of my contemporaries, as they've gotten to my age group, they've had to give up the drugs or the alcohol or the strippers. You know what I've realized over the last couple of days I've got to give up now?
No.
The Popeyes.
Oh, I didn't realize you ate Popeyes that often.
The Popeyes chicken. Well, I don't. And that's why I suddenly realized I've got to give it up. It wasn't like a thing that came on gradually because I was eating it 4 times a week. I know I have the reputation, but I don't eat a lot of fast food anymore because I'm not traveling. I've mentioned I poisoned myself by not fully baking the chicken and garlic Papa Murphy's calzone a couple months ago. But the Papa Murphy's I don't consider, which I still don't indulge more than probably a couple times a month. And the Papa Murphy's take and bake pizza, but that's not really fast food. That's a fine quality pizza that you can bake in the oven at your convenience.
It's not fast food. It's frozen pizza.
It's never frozen.
Oh.
What do you know? You don't have Papa Murphy's up there? I
don't even know what that is. No, we have
folks,
like the real places.
Me to go
we have
back
the real
to
joints
original.
Up here. I don't know what Papa Murphy's
remind me to go back to my original topic of the Popeyes chicken here in a second. But first, no, Papa Murphy's is a storefront. And
for the mob?
No, it's a store. There's somebody racing a motor.
It's a front somewhere. For the mob? What is this?
Can you hear the noise behind me now? Now I sound like you. But I swear to God, I'm looking out the window.
What don't bring God into
this?
It
sounds like the house is shaking. It sounds like somebody's racing a motor. There's a helicopter. Stacy said, she asked me yesterday, she says, Brian, all right? She said, he keeps hearing it. I don't hear any noises. She said, is Jace editing them out or is Brian just imagining things? I said, well, it's a little bit of both. But anyway,
they're edited
Papa
out.
Murphy's is a storefront and you go in and they have dough. And instead of you cooking it, making it at home, they'll spread you out fresh dough and they'll put on the toppings that you request and desire. And then they'll hand you the pizza and you take it home and you just put it in the oven, but it's not frozen. It's a fine quality Italian dish, but nevertheless, back to Popeyes. No, this past weekend, I got energetic for once, and I'll have you know that the big sale going on at JimCornette.com, I'll make this a plug at the same time.
out of nowhere.
We're going to talk, it's the cause of all this. It's what's causing all this. So I spent like 9 fucking hours on Saturday all day. Whenever Harley didn't want to go out and take a piss, signing action figures that have been ordered at JimCornette.com. And it's not just, you see, they show the video of John Cena signing 3,000 autographs in 14 minutes or whatever. And he's going down and somebody just handing him pictures of, these are all personalized. This is not fast food autographs. They're done to order to Claude. Congratulations on your bowel movement. your friend Jim Cornette, that type of thing.
Thunderbolt?
You got to, well, he had one. So I've got to read what the request is, and then I've got to write that, and then I've got to put it aside in the box that the feather bottoms can then take on off with and put the labels on and ship and track and things. And also, there's a peanutting process, and we're thinking about getting one of those commercial spray foam machines.
No way.
It would cut down on the peanutting, but then we just can't figure out how to get the goddamn action figure out of the spray foam. But anyway, so I did that for 9 hours. And Stacey, what do you want for dinner? Because it's so pitch black dark this time of year. Fucking Jesus Christ, 5:30 at night, it's dark. I said, you know what? I said, I haven't had I want some fried chicken. There's a Popeye's chicken right down the road. And they're on the Grubhub or the Uber Eats or whatever
DoorDash?
One of those things. A guy he didn't dash, he drove up the driveway.
Oh.
But he drove right up and brought us so I got some Popeye's chicken. And the same thing that I've always eaten when I've eaten Popeyes in the past, but it's been months and months since I've had Popeyes. But I got the spicy chicken with the blackened ranch that I like to dip or sprinkle on or whatever the case may be. And I had, didn't even get the biscuits and the red beans and rice because I had twice baked potato that it was here left over from the previous night from Paul's Market and some green beans. And there you go. There's a good old fried chicken, potatoes, and green beans. What can be more Southern than that? I've eaten that countless times in my life, right? And I went to bed and I woke up early the next morning, but I was turned over sleeping mostly on my chest and stomach with my head turned to the side that it will turn with my bad neck. And the way that I was awoken-fied at 5 o'clock or whatever in the morning was because somehow I had a little bit of indigestion, heartburn, as they call it, overnight while I was asleep and didn't know about it. But at this point, my body decided, even though this motherfucker's asleep, we need to burp. And when I burped face down with that indigestion going on all night, I awoke with the scalding burning in my throat of I had burped up some type of stomach intestinal acid into my esophageal lining. And it all of a sudden was like I'd drunk fucking bleach. I sit straight up, bolt upright, and I start coughing. And my throat is like you drunk scalding battery acid. And I'm choking and I'm reaching for a goddamn Sprite Zero left over from the night before on a nightstand, and I'm guzzling this fucking thing. And I have no idea what happened to, and then all I can taste is Popeye's chicken and hot battery acid. And I'm like, holy shit.
Sounds like Louisiana.
Has that? Well, yes. Many times hot battery acid was tossed in my direction. That is, so I've got to give up the Popeye's chicken. I'm too old for this shit. That's not fair.
Do you think you've lost your immunity to a lot of these things because you haven't been frequenting your old hangouts, your old drive-bys?
Well, I always thought that a person needed to eat plenty of grease and fried food because that way it gets in your bloodstream and it lubricates you and keeps your blood moving smoothly. And if all you had was fiber and all those bran muffins and everything, well, that would clog you up like leaves in a gutter and your blood would just stagnate. But now apparently I'm stagnated.
Because you changed your diet. You got healthier.
Well, this health stuff is highly overrated. Because your body will turn on you just because you have 8 or 9 pieces of spicy Popeyes dipped in blackened ranch. It's bullshit, I say. All right, well, what are we doing here?
This is your show.
And speaking of health, and I did talk about the action figures I was signing. Guess who's got pneumonia?
Pneumonia? Who's that?
Hotchkiss Featherbottom.
I never would have guessed.
Hotchkiss Featherbottom got pneumonia, and now before anybody thinks this is some kind of goddamn ploy that you're not going to get your shit, no, he's powered through it. He was down in bed for 2 days.
So walking pneumonia.
Well, that's what he called it. And maybe that's where he got pneumonia, out walking around in this odd weather. I don't have any idea, but if I had pneumonia, I wouldn't be walking around telling people about it. I'd be in bed to get a sorry wrong number. But anyway, he was down for a couple of days, but we have almost matched our goal. And I would say that by the time that he finishes processing what he's got and I just signed by this coming weekend, if you've ordered anything since like November the fucking 10th, I believe we're going to be caught up with you. We're struggling back through this backlog, and the reason for all of that is because the big finale, the big blow off, the main event, the final November weekly sale is going to be the Midnight Express 4-pack, the action figure boxed set with all 4 of us, plus the book, the certificate of authenticity, and the autographed picture. November 22nd at noon Eastern through December 3rd at noon Eastern. 10 whole days to encompass the Thanksgiving weekend and frivolity therein. $40 off for the 4-packs. These bad boys ain't going to get any cheaper. I'm just going to tell you that right now, because it's still being paired out 4 ways amongst the Midnight Express and Bobby's kids. So we just can't do this without going bankrupt. And it costs a lot of money to go bankrupt these days. So anyway, Hotchkiss is fighting through his illness. Orders are still going out. And if you order by December 3rd, if you want it by Christmas, and if you live in Tanzania somewhere, you're pressing the issue right now. But domestically especially, by the time that we can get it and I can sign it the way you like it, and then we can get it back out to you, it'd be a good idea to say, if I want it by Christmas, order through that December 3rd period, and you get $40 off the 4-pack. But I'm glad to hear, Brian, that you were so sympathetic or empathetic or whatever, or just a decent human to Hotchkiss here, fighting through. You ought to hear him coughing. Poor little thing. He sounds like a chipmunk.
What'd you say? He's in a coffin?
You ought to hear him coughing.
Oh.
Every time I try to talk to him, he's like, well, Jim, I've never heard him so sick.
You worked him too much, poor guy.
Well, at least he's still walking. So, I got emails.
Oh.
I told you I had no order. There's just notes and things on scraps of paper.
Aren't you going to sing the Jim Reads His Email song?
He's reading his emails, his wonderful emails. He's reading his emails, his wonderful emails, and that's all from the cult.
All right. Now it's official.
All righty. This is from Frank Culbertson out there in the Portland territory. One of the top guys out in the Portland territory, Brian.
One of the top historians out there. Absolutely.
And he's talking about one of the other ones. It's like the Lawler and Dundee of Portland, Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers has
one of the top historians out there.
Yes, well, there you go. Yeah. But Mike Rogers has another book coming out. Did you know about this?
It's all about panties.
No, that's not the one.
That's not the Mike Rogers, or that's not the book?
No, that's not the Mike Rogers book.
Oh.
It's this Mike Rogers book. Actually, it's a collection of stories, I am told, from his 30 years as an educator, which normal people refer to as school teachers. But you know what? And because I should say that Mike doesn't always write about boring topics like his own life. Mike has done umpteen books about the Pacific Northwest history and the encyclopedias of folks that have worked their way through there.
He had one of the longest running wrestling newsletters of all time, Ring Around
the Northwest. See, I did that right in tune with you.
Which became a fascinating newsletter because as the territory died, it was just all this like behind the scenes drama with the athletic commission. And
yeah.
It became really interesting, and he was the only guy really covering it.
And the best thing was it was still interesting, even though it was like one show ran last week in the parking lot of a fucking appliance store, but then there's 7 pages on what the promoters and the commission are trying to do to each other.
And then like every other month, it's like Billy Jack Haynes is trying to do this.
Yes. And then the next month, it's Billy Jack Haynes is gone away.
Buddy Rose was seen.
But anyway, this book is about it. He's been a teacher, and actually he is a real human being with a life also. But the title of it is Squirrel Paws. Did you hear me correctly, Brian?
I heard you correctly. I have no idea what that means.
Squirrel paws. Well, the explanation for that is squirrel paws was the tactic that Mike was taught toward the ends of his teaching career, one of these modern things, to fend off students who attacked him, like put up your hands and just try to bat the incoming blows away, like with squirrel paws.
What kind of school is this?
Well, apparently it's, one of the modern techniques for dealing with this thing. When I was a kid, it would have been if you were old enough to punch somebody in the face, you were old enough to get punched in the fucking face. And that's why fewer people got punched in the fucking face.
I mean, every now and then a kid would wild out and go after the teacher, but it was a rare thing. It sounds like this was a frequent thing where he had to come up with a tactic.
Well, apparently it was like,
Was this Miami?
No, out in Oregon.
Yeah, what the hell?
It's like the duck and cover with the communist threat of a nuclear war in the 60s, and they had the bomb plans, and now the shooting drills, and also they teach the teachers how to fucking fend off like a ninja. But anyway, there's something else about Frank's email, but that's a plug for Mike's book, because Lord knows he needs it. But Frank also said, remember we were talking in one of the Raycon ads about it doesn't even matter how wide your head is. Because these things, they can be far enough apart to fit any, fucking like football-shaped head like Stewie Griffin or whatever. Just a variety of these things. But we didn't know the technical verbosity behind it, Brian. You see what I'm saying? We didn't know what to call these things. So Frank has filled us in on head size, as we were speaking about on the podcast. The word for one whose head breadth is greater than 75% of its length. Now, length, we're going top of the head, I guess, to the bottom of the chinny chin, right? And then the breadth would be the space from ear to ear. Are we all on the same page? It's very important.
I don't know what page you're on. What exactly are we talking about here?
We're talking about different terms for the different shapes of heads that we were talking about before.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes. So a person...
I used to read about that in Ring Around the Northwest.
Yes. Because Mike modeled for the... But nevertheless, a person...
He modeled for what?
He modeled for the abnormally shaped head. So a person whose head width maybe is greater than 75% of its length is called a brachycephalic. BRACHYCEPHALIC. Brachycephalic.
I guess where I'm confused is how did we end up here? Weren't we just talking about a squirrel technique and students attacking teachers?
Yes, that's about Mike's book. But Frank also knows things about head. And he's telling us about the head terminology. Or he knows things about heads, I guess, plural.
Right. Or get back to your head game. I'll stay out of this.
Well, and it's you and me, baby. Head game. But now, so that's the wide head is brachycephalic. If you let me get this out, people are trying to take notes here. But if a person whose width is less than 75% of its length, or a long-headed person, that means you're from ear to ear is less than 75% from the top of your head to the bottom of your chin.
You have pinheaditis.
Well, that is called dolichocephalic. Dolichocephalic. Dolichocephalic.
Dolicho is my name, and long face is my game.
Yeah, there you go. I saw that movie, Dolicho. And Frank concludes, in my family, we call dolichocephalic heads as the Culbertson head. Buying hats for this type of head is difficult. So if you want to get Frank Culbertson a hat, remember dolichocephalic fits pretty much the whole family. From him to Zippy Culbertson, his brother was maybe an exception.
Did we ever get an explanation to what exactly the squirrel technique was?
Yes, I said that. You were too busy scoffing and laughing at it. It's like you're squirrel. When did you last sit and watch the squirrels?
I have squirrels all the time out here, but I mean, I don't chase them or attack them or anything.
No, I'm not.
Is that what you do?
Chasing them,
attack the squirrels?
Oh, God damn it!
Do you eat them too?
No, I will not. No, people, stay away from my squirrels. I love my squirrels. They're so cute. But no, do you sit and watch them? How they act, how they behave, their movements, their activities.
Yeah, they're sneaky little fuckers.
Well, they're minding their own business out in nature, eating nuts wherever they can be found. But if they rear up on their hind legs and they've got their little front paws kind of wiggling around in front of them, either they're eating a nut or they're just playing with the other. That's the squirrel paws. It's just you can't really go through and just punch that fucking juvenile delinquent that's attacking you in the face. You've got to just fend off his blows with the little squirrel paws. And that's the technique that
I thought it was going to be menopause for squirrels. Squirrel paws.
Why do you have to bring a show that's already pretty low down into the complete gutter with jokes about menstruating rodents?
Are they rodents?
Well, I think isn't a squirrel it's a mammal, but isn't a squirrel a kind of a lot of people call them tree rats. They're very dismissive of the cuteness that is the American squirrel.
That's a slur against the squirrel community.
That's true, and I don't want to be known as an anti-squirrelite. I don't use those words. But where were I? What were you asking?
I was asking about the squirrel. You said you collect squirrels and you do stuff to them?
Collect squirrels. And, no. I don't. You threw me the goddamn. I was trying to make a point about
it was a curveball.
The curveball. The squirrels are cute and nice, and we like the squirrels here. But the pause is the technique, because you don't sit and watch them with appreciation for them.
You know, I knew this show was going to be ridiculous today, but it's much better than I ever would have thought.
Well, you won't keep up with what's going on. You have to keep dragging us back into minutia.
All right, I'll go on Brian pause.
Well, no, you don't need to. Now, don't be getting in a snit. I'm looking at my notes here. Oh, here's an email that I got. Remember, we were talking about, and this maybe straighten up and fly right here, because this is history we've got to do correctly for the record. We were talking about the collaboration between Dick the Bruiser and Jerry Jarrett in 1982 when Bruiser, and I saw an ad, Bruiser had run Market Square Arena, I think, for the last time in 1981, and it, Bruiser and, goddamn, it may have been Snyder versus the Kelly twins, Pat and Mike Kelly in Market Square Arena in 1981. Can you imagine how abysmal that may have been?
I was afraid you were going to say Ox Baker was one of the opponents, and I was thinking, oh, that must have been abysmal.
No, but nevertheless, and we've talked about just recently also when Bruiser and Snyder more or less strong-armed a piece of Louisville and Evansville, Indiana from Jerry Jarrett when he opened back up in the early 70s, right? We had that discussion recently. And that was from a question from Dave Dynasty.
That's right.
And
a great historian.
Well, boy, you're throwing around the word. Hold on here 1 second. Wait a minute.
See, that's the key to getting your letters read on the air, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be You got to be a great historian out there. You got to know your area.
You're throwing that around like, Jimmy Hart saying baby. But anyway, it's fascinating because we've been talking a lot about various times where promoters have had wars. We talked about Sheik and the Bruiser. We covered the Atlanta wrestling war. But on a local level, there were still these little skirmishes going on in the territory days that until you look back and uncover, you don't really know the extent of or what happened. And when we've talked about Louisville history, remember I said Phil Golden's All-Star Wrestling that competed with Jarrett in Louisville and in other places in 1972 and 73. First of all, Phil Golden was either the brother or the cousin of Bill Golden, who was a member of the Welch family by marriage and with Nick and Roy behind Jarrett in Louisville. In effect, you had members of the family running opposition to each other, which I always found fascinating. But Angelo Poffo was involved in that promotion. And he later on, 5 years later, with his sons, Randy and Lanny, would open up ICW in these same markets, try to do the same thing in the same place. And there's some additional information on Bruiser and or Jarrett and or Goulas in Evansville that Sean Delaney has done, because Sean Delaney has done the history of Evansville wrestling.
He's an adequate historian.
Well, Sean's thinking, why the fuck did you have to call him on that right before he mentioned my name?
Dave Dynasty gave me $50.
Well, Sean will beat that.
Oh, hey, Sean, give me a call.
He'll come up with at least $52.50.
All right.
But Sean, because Evansville, Indiana was its own territory with its own local promoter and own television in the late 50s, and then got swept up into using the Barnett talent in Indiana, and then that happened, and at the same time, the local promoter was out of business, and so Evansville had been dark, as they used to call it in those days, for most of the last half of the 60s, and we found out also the old Coliseum in Evansville was in... Oh, God, Sean's going to kill me because it's in his book and I read it, but the city owned it, and they had turned it for some reason into another type of facility where they were doing some kind of things with schools or whatever, right? So the only place to have wrestling was Roberts Stadium, which was an indoor arena, even though it sounds like an outdoor arena, but it seats like 10 or 12,000. It was just very big, right? So Evansville, Indiana, no live wrestling. Louisville, Kentucky, no live wrestling. Lexington, Kentucky, no live wrestling. A strip of Interstate 64 going from really southern Illinois all the way over through to into West Virginia. A lot of the towns were dark as a result of Bruiser taking over the Indiana portion of Barnett's territory, and this was too far down for the Sheik. So a bunch of towns got lost in the shuffle. Did that set the stage properly, Brian?
It has set the stage, yes. Now open the curtain.
Yes, and overture, curtain lights. So Evansville, the argument about was it still Bruiser and Snyder's town? Well, they ran Evansville for a few months in 1968. The Coliseum was unavailable, so they had to use Roberts Stadium. And Sean thinks they peaked with a show that drew around 2,500 people, which may be one of the bigger crowds in Evansville history, but fell to about 500 before they pulled the plug, including dropping the TV in November and December. And 500 people would have been an average and kind of on the poor end crowd in the 70s for Jarrett. But in the Coliseum, which you could get 2,000 people in with Vaseline, right? And it was a lot cheaper to rent. What a historic building. You can smell the mildew a mile away. But then Sean also says It was because Evansville came after Louisville. Around the time Jarrett had Louisville up and running, he got the TV deal with WTVW Channel 7, which is the station that would air Jarrett's show for most of the period of time he ran Evansville for all those years. And Sean thinks that's what got Bruiser and Snyder's attention and why they made their trip. I'm pretty sure that Louisville doing 5,000 people in some of those early days, weekly shows probably got their attention before he opened up Evansville. But I think Evansville, well, here's another town, right? This all used to be, it was probably an exacerbating factor. But with Sean's research, we always wondered, because even though Bruiser was getting a piece of Louisville for a number of years, a limited amount of his talent came and worked here, right? It was more Evansville that was using Bruiser and Snyder talent from Indianapolis than it was Louisville. Because remember I said Jarrett ran Roberts Stadium at first, because that was before that they had returned the Coliseum back to its original function and changed the city arrangements. And that was way too big a building for everybody. But there was a lot of Indianapolis talent filling out the early cards in Evansville. But only the bigger names like Bruiser and Snyder and, some of the other top guys would get booked in Louisville. And part of that was because on Tuesday nights at that point in time, the Goulas Welch territory, they probably had two other towns, but they weren't against a major town. But Wednesday nights, by that point, had become the weekly night in Nashville. And then whatever else they were doing on Wednesdays, they needed more guys in Evansville that could drive 100 miles from Indianapolis and make the show and get paid $50, because Evansville, it didn't ever take off like a Louisville or a Lexington. It was always the Wednesday night town. But there was I remember on one of the Louisville cards, and I wish I'd been going to live wrestling at that point, but it was like 1972 or whatever. One of the preliminary matches was Jackie Fargo versus Bobby Heenan. Can you imagine how much fun Bobby would have had? Bobby was smart to the business. Fargo, it was a match to put Fargo on the card because people loved him, and he was going to beat Bobby in 12 entertaining minutes, right? But because Fargo was so over, Bobby would have had a ball doing very little, if anything, and having, people going crazy. But anyway, so that shed some light on, at first, Jarrett really needed help with Evansville because it wasn't ever going to take off like Louisville was, really. And the building wasn't that big and blah, blah, blah. But that was a Wednesday night town to justify the spot shows that he could also run in northern Kentucky, like Owensboro, which is it 40 miles from Evansville? I used to make the trip, but it's not very far. It's in Kentucky, Evansville, right across the state line in Indiana. And that's where, again, the local wrestling war that I mentioned is just kind of interesting. And then I'll open the floor for your questions or organ playing or flute playing, whatever you want to do. But Sean thinks that part of Nick and Roy not pressing the issue over Evansville and Louisville with Bruiser, like, we're not going to give you a piece of that, our boy, opened those towns, is because Jarrett was already he was younger and he was way smarter, way more energetic at that point than Nick Goulas. And at that point, Roy still had a lot of confidence and faith in Jerry, but as Roy's dementia progressed, by 1973, they were suspecting, did he send Mario Galento in to fucking ambush Jerry on Memphis television, right? So these things were going on. So Phil Golden had been running Owensboro at the Sports Center down there.
How far is that from Evansville?
Like I said, about 40 miles away. But Phil Golden had tried to run Evansville right before, and Nick, using their guy in Bowling Green, started running the Sports Center in Owensboro on Monday nights off of the Evansville TV when Jerry was in Memphis and didn't really have any say about it. So Nick was already starting to encroach on Jarrett's TV 40 miles south of the market before he could even start running that town. And Phil Golden had already started trying to run Evansville with no television because Phil Golden was the promoter at that time in Paducah, Kentucky, all the way at the western end of the state, right near southern Illinois and, that part in southern Indiana. So this is what I was going to tell Sean. Because he finishes up, he said it appears when Jerry cut off the deal with Bruiser and Snyder, they aligned with Phil Golden and sent guys to work the All-Star Wrestling events in Louisville. That's not true, because he didn't cut the deal off until after Phil Golden had already gone out of business. What happened was, as I mentioned him before, that's when Angelo Poffo went in with Phil Golden and wanted to open up this entire strip of dark towns. With Golden and Paducah and already having a television show there, All-Star Wrestling with Buzz Benson, and Angelo Poffo being from Illinois and always having wanted to run Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana, Louisville, and into West Virginia. That's the first time they tried it. Angelo was the top guy. He had worked for Bruiser for years and years, but wasn't at that time. I think he might have left there to do this. And he brought Paul Christie, who would be on a lot of the early Evansville events when Jarrett was running it. But Christie was until the late 70s when the competition went down, Christie had steady runs with Bruiser in Indiana, but had never been, he was a tag team champion with Moose Cholak. He was a mid-card babyface that the top heels that were going to fight Bruiser had to beat. But I think Angelo Poffo pitched him, come be a part of this thing with me, and you can be the world champion. And you can work with me as the miser or whatever. Then he was Angelo Poffo. And Christie was probably making as much money from them running 5 towns a week that didn't, particularly draw that good or that bad, and him being in the main event than him working 2 or 3 times for Bruiser in the third match. But anyway, that's, that.
And of course, Paul Christie made one legendary and weird appearance on TNT in the 80s as the wrestling magician. And then he was never seen again.
Well, and the thing is, when they finally had to use him as a main event heel instead of a mid-card babyface golden boy Paul Christie, when the talent level went down, I think it was like 78 or 9 or whatever, he was fucking great. He cut these promos where you thought he was a fucking psychopath, but not like screaming over the top or whatever, but just, I remember one of them, when he had first switched heel, he starts cutting the promo with his old golden boy sunglasses on. And then he makes some kind of point, but he takes the glasses off and he could pop his eyes out wider if he tried than almost any human being I've ever seen. And he takes the sunglasses off and his eyes look like ping pong balls while he's talking as calmly as possible. He was entertaining and he could work and he had a good body. But he wasn't going to, wasn't going to be the main event, especially at a dying territory and draw money at that point in time. He was already almost 50. He just looked so much younger. But nevertheless, they tried it with Angelo Poffo. Had bought into the thing with Phil Golden, and then I think he just took it over at the end. Golden abandoned the baby. And then that's first place that he went to, and all the towns they tried to open up again when he had a promotion with Lanny and Randy when they joined with the guys from Knoxville. And it was, and think about that. The Phil Golden's promotion was All Star Wrestling from Paducah, and the guys in Knoxville had broken off and started All Star Wrestling that Angelo joined with International All Star Wrestling and then ICW. And they're all fighting over places like Evansville, Indiana, and Owensboro, Kentucky, even in their own companies and own families. I find it fascinating. Do you find it fascinating, Brian? Just fascinating?
It's always interesting, kind of the history of outlaw wrestling in that part of the country, specifically from like the late 60s up until WWF, which is the rise and fall of the Poffos, I guess, in a lot of ways. The rise and fall and rise of the Poffos.
But, you know, that's the thing is that in those days, if you were smart to the wrestling business and had some knowledge of how to put shows together and put a structure of some network of towns together to keep some halfway decent wrestlers employed, you didn't need $1 million. You could get TV and run it for 10 or 12 weeks and start running live events, and halftime you could make some fucking money.
And how hard was it in some of those small towns? Well, I guess not the towns, but in some of those smaller cities to get TV back then.
Well, that's the thing. And, you know, it was a blessing and a curse because in Evansville, Indiana in 1970, they had, I'm going to say 3 television stations, and I might have to check and see if that third one had come on the air, but I believe it was 3. And so there's only 3 stations and however many hours in the day. However, at the same time, that's when they were still dependent on people watching for the commercials and et cetera, and their advertising income. There were no infomercials. So if they knew that a program would get an audience and you could sell them on that, then yes, they would fucking go with it. And there was a local history, and I believe it was with WTVW, of the local promotion years earlier, you know, being successful, whatever. They found a sympathetic program director, blah, blah, blah. So once you've got that, it was hard for wrestling to get kicked off because it always found an audience. And it was only, I mean, at various points in the 60s, the Chicago TV, Wrestling from Chicago, had been on in Evansville. Or, you know, at one point, the Indianapolis TV, I believe they used that. But it didn't last. They weren't having success enough in the market to, at the live events, to justify running a lot of them. And if there's no live events, people kind of slacked off of the TV. It fed on itself. So if you could say, look, station manager, you know people like wrestling, they're going to watch it. Look at the ratings. We're doing 100 miles down the road in Louisville, and we're doing 5,000 people at the Louisville Garden, blah, blah, blah. Put us on, give us a chance. We're going to run every week at the Evansville Coliseum. We'll be a presence here. The world will be safe for democracy. And they were on Channel 7, I'm pretty sure, for years uninterrupted. Certainly, they were still there in 1980 fucking 2 and 3 when I left the territory. So
what about in 1991? Did you work Evansville with the Fabulous Ones?
No. Because there was no way that Jerry Jarrett was going to give us our guarantee to go to Evansville. And that was the thing, is we might as well have moved to the territory than if we had, because we had to fly in Friday night to be in Memphis TV Saturday morning. And then we'd do Nashville on Saturday night and then off on Sunday, but we'd stay because of Memphis on Monday and Louisville on Tuesday. And then Stan and I would go back to Charlotte on Wednesday. So, you know, so I don't know what they were doing up there. As a matter of fact, you know what? Come to think of it, it was sometime in the I'm going to say 89, 90, 91-ish time frame. I'm thinking that they may have quit running Evansville because it just got, and they were trying to concentrate more on Owensboro. Maybe I'm off on my time frame.
When you were working there in the early 80s specifically, do you remember ever hearing that kind of conversation? Why are we running Evansville? We should stop running Evansville, or was it not at that point?
Well, no, because I mean, I'm going to say that there was a time or two when it fucking snowed or whatever that you could hear a mouse pissing on cotton in ringside. But when I say it was a shitty town, it was still selling in the worst time period for business when I was going there between 1979 and 1983. They were still selling 2,000, 20, maybe 2,500 tickets a month in that same fucking town in a building that I'm pretty sure they were getting for $400, maybe. And the main event guys got a little bit more money, and everybody else got another $50 on their fucking check for a Wednesday night when nobody's doing anything else. And that's 1980 money is that 4 times. That's like everybody on the card's getting $200 to have a half-ass match on a Wednesday night. And I don't want to say half-ass because there was a lot of good matches in Evansville. Everybody didn't just tank it, but it wasn't like goddamn Mid-South Coliseum. But that's the thing is they had TV there that they could also run Owensboro. They could also run Huntingburg, Indiana off that TV that drew 2,000 people at a high school gym. They were running 2 towns at least every week off that Evansville TV, and that was a small one in the overall scheme of things. So the TV is responsible for, on Wednesday and Thursday nights, them selling when Evansville was hot, and something like Lawler came back from his broken leg. They did $12,000 at $5 and $6 tickets. There were people standing in the fucking parking lot and in the fucking bathroom trying to, peek around the door. But normally they do 500 or 700 people, but it gave all the guys an extra payday, and it was only 2 hours from Nashville or whatever. So that's basically, everybody knew that's why you run fucking Evansville. You can't get in a lot of fucking small towns for spot shows on Wednesday nights in those days because many people went to church in that part of the country on Wednesday nights. So at least we could get the heathens to come to the Coliseum. And again, Christine Jarrett is selling her own tickets, and her driver, Donna or Sammy Malone or whatever, they're the 2 people selling the tickets. The ticket takers are volunteers that are, there because they love the fucking wrestling business. And, you're renting a building that seats however many people you need for a few $100s. And so it's not like there was a great expense to the fucking thing.
You brought up the Poffos. I guess this is a good time to ask you because we've heard from a lot of listeners. WWE, I think it may be the WWE Vault, put up footage of seemingly you and Randy Macho Man Savage in some sort of go-kart competition.
Yes.
There's a man mid-track with a tennis racket. I don't know who he is. Eventually, there's a...
He was the guy that was assigned to me to make sure that none of the fans fucking bothered me. And so I made him my manager.
Eventually, there was a chase of sorts. But what are your memories? What can you tell me anything about this?
Well, and there may be other footage coming out. See, this may be the tip of the iceberg because wait till you see me playing Macho Man at Goonie Golf.
Are you serious? Did you really do that?
Not only am I serious, but I've got some pictures of that day. And by the time, because that was in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the middle of summer, I can't remember the date. If I went through my books, it may be jotted down. But by the time that day was over with, after the go-kart racing and the Goonie golfing, and another thing I'll tell you about in a minute, I'm wearing those green pants and that, I think, what was it, purple or mauve or whatever shirt, and I am covered in sweat. It looks like people have dumped buckets of water over my head Because in those days I was a free perspire, so maybe they'd taken mercy on me and not playing the Goonie golf portion. But Randy Savage, for a period of time, worked Knoxville in the ICW / All-Star Wrestling days that we just referred to in our previous subject. In what was that, 1979 and 80, 81, 82, you know, when they were working East Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky. The point is, and I'm pretty sure at some point he lived in Knoxville, and then he lived in Lexington, but a friend of his from those days was opening a Goonie golf / go-kart. I can't remember the name of the business, saved my life, but it was a Goonie golf and go-kart place. What, you know, and I can't remember, I think it was in West Knoxville. I mean, I know people say I can remember everything, but seriously, this was it's 30 years ago and it was one day. And the office had called me and said, hey, Randy's doing an appearance to help his friend out. And since I was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and living in East Tennessee, they said, would you go down here and help him out and do an appearance for the grand opening of this deal? And I said, sure, this will be fucking hilarious, right? So what time frame that's before he and Vince had their issues, so that would have been 1993.
So it wasn't around when he worked for you?
Well,
because that was what? That was early 94, wasn't it?
No, but this was still, no, it wasn't like that weekend. It was another time he came down just to do this thing, and I went over to do it with him.
Because there's only a year and a half period of time it could have happened, because you only first showed up there in the summer of 93, and he was gone by the fall of 94.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you, is it was while he was still with the WWF, and I don't, it might have been right before he left the WWF. I can't remember, but it was sometime.
It may be the reason he left WWF.
Oh, come on now. But anyway, that was the thing. He wanted to do it. It wasn't like he's just doing random appearances. It was the friend of his from the old days that owned this place. And if you look in the video, there's a guy that looks like he's a big, tall, white guy, and looks like he's kind of got like an Elvis Presley impersonator kind of pompadour thing, and he's wearing the T-shirt from the place or whatever. But anyway, so we go down there, we do the go-kart race, right, where, I get started late, and then I can't make it work, and then I get turned around, and I'm going the other way, and I'm like, hey, you're not supposed to, and then I'm threatening I'm going to sue the guy. He gave me a fucking lemon. And then we have the Goonie golf. I can't, again, remember whether we played an entire game of Goonie golf, but there was a lot of people that had gathered for this, that he had advertised his grand opening.
Is Goonie golf mini golf?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, but this is East Tennessee. So like if you go to Pigeon Forge or you get Gatlinburg or whatever, they go, oh, it's Goonie golf, that type of thing. But it's not a full-sized golf course where people are just wandering around being Goonie. To answer your question,
sign me up for that. It sounds like Caddyshack 2.
And then there's gophers involved. See, it is gopher golf. But anyway, we're playing and I'm fucking sweating. And a bunch of people have come, and I think they had the radio station there for a while. And then we're I'm trying to figure out a way to, entertainingly be the heel manager, sweating my balls off and working the Goonie golf. And I hear honk, honk, the horns honking, hey! And I look over my shed, down the hill, it's fucking Terry Landell.
No!
Terry Landell has heard the fucking live remote or the advertisement that I'm going to be there, and I'm there with Macho Man, and he's honking his horn. He's driving a red Mustang, and he had some girl in the car with him. And he's honking his horn, and he's yelling out the window, who's your daddy, and all that stuff. And he's like, if he's promoting one of his shows, he's just generally making a nuisance out of himself, as he always did, right? And the way that this place was laid out, there was a hillside, and you could be on a road that was kind of uphill, and you could be on a road that was kind of downhill, and he had driven around a couple times, whatever. Fine, I just like, God damn it, can't even enjoy Goonie golf with Randy Macho Man Savage. Not this money. And by the way, he was an outlaw promoter that was a thorn in our side and was the Ernest T. Bass of pro wrestling in East Tennessee.
Well, you see, that's the thing. It even predates Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He's been
yeah,
a pain in the ass and a thorn in the side that any wrestling promoter in Knoxville going back to the 70s.
any wrestling promoter that wouldn't either put him on the card in some fashion or recognize him as somehow some type of personality. By the way, he's dead now. So hold on one second. Yeah, Terry Lett died, I think, about a year ago. Just fucking graveyard dead. Let me hold on. Just so I want to make sure. When they fingerprinted me for trying to kill him, that was what the cop said. So you tried to kill Terry Landell. I said, that's what they claim. He said, too bad you missed. So anyway,
And that's the police.
that was the police. Yeah, and that's a direct quote. Some hillbilly shit went on in Knoxville back in it. But anyway, so I'm trying to play Goonie golf with Randy Savage, and here this motherfucker now is down at the bottom of the hill, and he's honking his horn in his red Mustang and yelling, and I can see me walking down the hill. I've got this Goonie golf club in my hand. I'd had enough. And I'm walking down the hill going, get your ass out of that fucking car, motherfucker. I'm going to beat that windshield in with this goddamn Goonie golf club. And as I'm cussing him, he's out of the car on this, but now he fucking grabs the door and opens the door where the girl is. And on the passenger side, and he looks like, I can't remember what he said, but he's trying to give me the impression he's going to get his gun, because then I had to say, get your gun so that I can shove it up your ass after I beat your head in with this Goonie golf club, you stupid motherfucker. Because he wasn't going to shoot me in front of 500 fucking witnesses. And then he goddamn jumps the car and he fucking speeds off, and I'm running through the parking lot after him, swinging the fucking golf club. You motherfucker! And I mean, there's a bunch of kids that come to the Goonie golf place, but the owner.
I forgot about the kids being there.
Yeah, they got Goonie with their golf that day. I'm like, you motherfucker, come back here, I'm gonna beat you in a jelly. And he head out down. But the owner is Savage's friend, and he was around the business in the 70s when strange shit happened, right? So he wasn't fazed by it. So then I go back up the hill. Well, now I'm really fucking sweating, and I've still got to finish the fucking golf. I'm blowed up. I look like somebody had turned a shower on me. And I had to pick up and finish the Goonie golf game to whatever extent that there was after I'd chased Terry Landell out of the fucking course with the goddamn Goonie golf club.
That's a Terry Landell story I'd never heard before.
Well, I didn't even think about it until this was one day in a life. But whenever that was, that's when that was. Whew. I tell you, that's the thing. Brian, if we had the fancy Dan wireless phone plans and things and such that we've got now back then you'd know about these things instantly. But sometimes these are hidden gems that remain to be unveiled. But now we know everything. And you know as well as I know, and only you and I know, that Mint Mobile is the cheapest great phone plan. That's what the 5G network, I found out that's great. Because they
Ding! I don't have the thing here. Ding!
Well,
Ding.
Hold on. I'll do that for you.
Something? Hold on. What's here?
I'll do that for you. But it's because it gets 5Gs.
Yes.
It gets 5Gs. That's the way they determine the top network. Instead of 5 stars, it's 5Gs. You get 1 great, 2 great, 3 great, 4 great, 5 great. Well, you work on your timing there.
Hey.
But Mint Mobile,
that's not nice,
has the biggest network that there is, and that's why that they can deliver to you high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5 great network, and they could do it for only $15 a month. You know why? Low overhead. That's why, because Mint Mobile knows how to operate a business. They keep their ship tight, their things buttoned up, and they pass the savings on to the consumer. So if you want a phone plan where you get all of that stuff, you can use your own phone. With any of these Mint Mobile plans, you can bring your own phone number, bring your existing contacts along, and just have a big party. You remember we've talked about everybody getting a party line. I think if people communicated more, well, there might be more love in the world. Put a little love in your heart with a party line where you just join up 15 or 20 of you. Just stay on the phone all the time. And you can do that because it's unlimited. There's an unlimited amount of things you can do with Mint Mobile. And one of them is ditching the overpriced wireless, and you get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. Brian, have I told a lie there? Have I exaggerated anything?
Right there? Be more specific. What is right there?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just giving you the straight out facts. I'm just telling you what the situation is here. I'm not extrapolating or hyperbolating the whole issue
Certainly
here.
Not. No, of course not.
No, and that's why, friends don't let friends overpay for wireless. Because the next thing you know, after a friend lets a friend overpay for wireless, the next thing could result in some kind of unwanted pregnancy or potential legal charge. You could be letting people get away with all kinds of shit. So nip it right here in the bud. If you have some uninformed friend or even relative, I'm sure a lot of our listeners know stupid people, and they don't know about Mint Mobile, and they're just throwing their money at some high-priced outfit. Let them know about this, and that way they can change their methods and modify their attitude accordingly by going to mintmobile.com/JCE and getting the 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. That's $45. It's simple mathematics. Boom! The wireless bill, it is now $15 a month, and it does all this fancy Dan shit that the kids like to do. You can take the pictures and press the button to send the smiley face or the fucking dick shooting sperm all over the face of a goddamn.
Come on, we're right near the end. Why do you have to?
I don't know.
An aardvark? Really, an aardvark?
Well, I don't know. They're so small, I can't tell what they are, but it looks like something's always coming on something else.
All right, somehow this is getting worse and worse, but Mint Mobile will make your life better and better. That is a guarantee that no one is making, but we really, really, truly believe that they may make things better. Jim, one more time, what's that promo code?
Well, it's mintmobile.com/JCE, and don't worry, folks, they won't come on you at all. It's just these other people.
Mint Mobile.
But Brian, we got to talk about something, and I know this is going to be hard for the listeners to believe, but you are more on the GQ beat than I am, the Gentleman's Quarterly. You're more living in that world than I am, because I don't dress up anymore. I'm not worried about being stylish or anything like that. But no, because a lot of people think
I don't get my style from GQ magazine, thank you.
Well, but you're more tuned into that type of thing.
I'm a sexy
fashion
man.
and
I'm a very sexy man.
You're a sexy man, and people wear, sexy things, that type of, because a lot of people have misconstrued you.
Oh.
Because they think you have a deep man's voice, and when you get cracked up at our frivolity, you have a deep, hearty guffaw that sometimes borders on full-fledged, that type of thing, and people think that for that reason, and you bellow about the mothership. They think you're a Falstaffian figure.
Oh.
A rotund, a Victor Bueno body type. But in actuality, I know that at least the last time I saw you, and it has been a while, the last kid may have ruined your figure. But you've been a very physically fit and trim and desirable looking male figure. So I don't know why people think that part of it is that accent. You sound,
Oh.
people say you sound like Bubba Ray
I have a
Dudley.
fat guy accent. I understand now. No, it's true, ladies and gentlemen. It is true. Whatever this man says, I am big and fat. I live in the basement. I've never met a woman, let alone touched a woman, and I play a lot of video games.
How'd you have them fucking kids then? Have you checked with the milkman?
I'm trying to raise some money. I want to get a PS5 if anyone could help out.
Well, you want to get a public school?
No, PlayStation.
Oh.
Get with the now, Grandpa.
Well, that was the whole point of this preamble.
Yeah, by the way, what is the topic that started with you picking on me? What the fuck is this?
No, I'm not picking on you. I'm saying that you know more about GQ Mag. They call it Gentleman's Quarterly.
Do they?
Now, well, that's what the full title is. Where do you think GQ came from? Gentleman's Quarterly. That's the way it started.
The newsstand. Where do you think?
Well, so the point is since you are somewhat of a gentleman, even though, I get laid quarterly, I tell you. So I figured you would be more in on this. I wanted you to research this for me. Dwayne Johnson was on the cover. The Rock, for those of you who don't know him by his professional name, he's the Entertainer of the Year in GQ magazine, and he cuts a stylish figure in his $500 white T-shirt. And I thought you have researched this. We're going to go over the claims that they have made about The Rock here in this article.
Hold on, let me try to stop this video that's automatically playing on this page, which is just more of the fluff that is in this article. As you were saying, GQ magazine has named Dwayne Johnson roided up phony of the year.
Oh, come on now.
He was in competition with only himself.
He's out there fly fishing with a white guy. That's pretty fly for a white guy.
Before we say anything about the content of the article here, some of these photos, these ridiculous fucking photos in here, I mean, we shouldn't take them seriously, right? He's posing for the fashionistas who read GQ magazine. This is not anything we should not just mock.
We're not talking about audience of Waylon and Willie and the boys here.
This one over here in the red, he's wearing Virgil's pants.
Well, I'm trying to. What is the blue? He's got a blue. It doesn't appear to be leather. It looks like it might be inflatable, but a blue jacket with baggy black shorts, but with apparently black hose. It would be leggings and the tennis shoes. And he looks like Darby Allin if he had, some type of color coordination. But there's a picture of with your doggy. Oh, he's got the beautiful little puppy doggy.
Once again, the male J-Lo. The video that's playing here, I put up the captions just because I'm not going to play it right now. In August of 2024, Dwayne Johnson invited GQ writer Zach Barron to his farm in Virginia. Because that's the move, it can't be like, meet me in LA or meet me in Miami, meet me in all the places where I show off my wealth and the usual ways. Meet me so I can show you the down-to-earth me, the farm me. Down on the farm in Virginia. Get the fuck out of here. What is this shit? You ever think of him as this farm guy in Virginia?
Yeah, farm guy in Virginia.
That's why he's showing up late for his fucking movie roles. He's milking the cows.
He can't make his connections because he's out there too far from the airport. I'm still like, and there's the puppy doggy again. The sweater is by Extreme Cashmere. The pants are by Balenciaga. But who the puppy dog by? Oh, the puppy's so cute. Yeah, okay, I love him. Now, anybody that takes pictures with dogs, it's fine.
All right, I don't know.
He can be a douchebag.
I don't know if any of these quotes from this.
Wait a minute. Why is he doing Bruce Springsteen? Bruce Springsteen, with the one down at the bottom.
Oh, hold on, let me
Picture
scroll.
where he's got his back to the camera and he has a strategically placed bandana in his right ass cheek pocket.
Well, that's to show that he's with the working man. He's with the working class, the class that he isn't. He's with them, though. He supports them in the Born in the USA 1984 kind of spirit. Just put on a white T-shirt and a bandana and, hey, America, big eagles and trucks and dirt. Lots of dirt and beer.
Lots of dirt.
Beer. mountains and beer and birds. Yeah, you know, all that shit.
But no, but it's tequila.
Oh, yeah, that's the move now. Like, that's what we need. More tequila from more bullshit brands.
No, he's already got tequila.
I know. He has his bullshit tequila brand that no one wants.
Now, are you a tequila connoisseur?
No, I think tequila sucks.
See, now you put me in a position.
Tequila, that's what I think. It's tequila.
I got to take up for a guy that's worth $500 million here because you're just being so unfair.
Come on.
You just beating him. You just kicking him while he's down. You won't even read some of the articles to see if he can indeed bury himself with his own douchebaggery instead of you just preemptively doing it.
Every time he has a sip of his own tequila, it disappears for 4 months.
Hey, come on.
All right, well, let's get to this. I've not read this article. I've heard about it, but I've not read it because...
See, you're knocking him already. You haven't even read the article.
I'm knocking him from the video because then I'm going to see if the article has the quotes that are in this video as he's sitting on his porch here on his farm in Virginia. Because
and also it's a wonderful railing, the deck, there with the trees in the background. It looks like any moment, Ma and Pa Kettle will come around the corner with an apple pie. And I think it's a good thing that his interviewer is dressed in a white T-shirt also, because since he weighs 140 pounds less, it kind of makes Rock look better. So they've staged that well. And the fly fishing is impeccable.
Unbelievable, this bullshit. Sometimes I have my driver take me into town so I could say hello to the normal people.
Is it supposedly this his farm? He owns this place. Did he buy this just for the goddamn interview?
Well, again, maybe I am being unfair. Maybe now you're being unfair. Let's go to the article here. This is the GQ video cover story. A feature that delivers, and this is just plug in GQ. He was Man of the Year. They named him the Man of the Year. It's not that Dwayne Johnson is tall, though he is. About 6 feet 4 inches and broad. With a, what is this? Adamantine? I don't know this word.
Adamantine bald head. Maybe it's hydroencephalic, like we were talking about earlier.
And sculptural shoulders.
So automatically we know this is going to be a very critical article.
It's not that he is part Samoan, part black, though he is that too. It's not that Johnson is what Hollywood likes to euphemistically call the most successful movie star alive, meaning most years the highest paid. It's that these things, the shape of the man, his parents, his professional ascendance, have combined in a singular way to make him recognizable at more or less any distance. Because of this, Johnson struggles, in the most prosaic sense, to be alone.
He wants to be alone.
He can count the number of places available to him for solitude on 3 mighty fingers, and does. He could sit inside his truck, which he likes to drive to set no matter what city he is in part because his silhouette is less noticeable behind the wheel of a car. He can go to his gym, or he can come here to the generous property he owns in rural Virginia, with a 3-acre pond, a horse barn, and green hills and a Victorian-style house of slightly exaggerated Dwayne Johnson-esque proportions.
So he does own it. Well, son of a bitch, he's way too rich, isn't he?
Is this already way too fluffy? I mean, I'm having fun with it, but...
My God, this is... And yeah, we can't have fun with it word for word because it goes on like that forever.
And this is why men don't read GQ magazine.
I know not only is it not in any way... and I'm not saying that he should be, tied and pilloried in the town square by some magazine, but this is a fluff piece if I ever heard one, and it's so glowingly written as to be, goddamn, you're getting diabetic. You're getting sugar diabetes, as Mama Cornette would have said, from just reading this thing.
It immediately paints him as a sympathetic figure. Immediately. That's the onset of the article. Have sympathy for this man. His silhouette is too noticeable. As he's filming himself in the parking lot of In-N-Out Burger, don't think, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Think he's so lonely that he doesn't even remember if he's been here before for a hamburger. That is true loneliness, folks. I'll let you take the next paragraph here.
No, I mean, we can't read this.
No, you have to. You have to, I think.
It's so long.
All right, I'll do it.
It's so
Anywhere
long.
else, Johnson says, and he's probably surrounded by people. Other actors, directors, executives, business people, employees, fans, journalists, children, wife, and ex-wife. Here's a quote from Dwayne Johnson. I feel like the moment I walk out the door, that's when the whirlwind starts. He is mostly okay with this. When I asked Johnson, who used to regularly perform live in sold-out arenas as a professional wrestler known as The Rock, Johnson's first real career, and the thing that made him famous, whether he is comfortable around other people, he seems genuinely confused about the question. Oh yeah, Johnson says, for sure. Like, am I an asshole? And now this is the writer again, not Dwayne Johnson. In my experience, no. Johnson is in fact famous for remembering your name and your kid's name and your kid's grandparents' names, aka the names of your parents, whom he wishes well in their next chapter of retirement, etc. See, hold on, let me stop there. This is a puff piece that Dwayne Johnson arranged to counteract the negative stories about him earlier in the year. Do you agree with that?
I would have to think that he at least negotiated a friendly reporter for GQ magazine to assess this situation here. Because continuing with the writer, he observes closely, asks a lot of questions. His art is the art of being himself. There's only one guy remotely like him, and that guy would love to get to know you and have you know him in turn. I mean, yes, he's obviously a very personable movie star, so he's going to be nice to the reporters. But I've never, again, seen this level of just adoration for, if they interviewed the Pope, for fuck's sake, would they be talking like this? Well, no, the Pope's done some really nasty shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for the part I heard about. Here it is. Just to skip ahead a little bit. Before I got to the WWE, I wrestled in a small wrestling company called the USWA. Those were the days where I was making $40 per match wrestling in flea markets and used car dealerships in the parking lot. But guaranteed $40. I ate Waffle House 3 times a day. What you learn there in cutting your teeth in that world of pro wrestling at that level is to do your best to send everybody home happy. Years later, Johnson says, when I got into the business of Hollywood and... I'm sorry.
When I got into the business of Hollywood.
When I got into the business of Hollywood and movie making, it's like, okay, well, what kind of movies do I want to make? I want to make movies that hopefully are good, that don't suck, but also reach as many people as possible. And I think the thing that a lot of people jumped on, and this is my first time seeing the actual quote, was his description of struggling on the indies for $40 a match in the USWA. When he was in the USWA, he was under a WWE deal already, wasn't he? Flex Cavana?
Yes, but I'm trying to recall if I know how much they may have been paying him at that point in time. Because this was 1996 in Memphis. In 1999, they were giving out developmental deals of like $300, $500 a week. So yes, he was getting $40 from Randy Hales because that was the minimum.
But he was also getting paid by Vince. This is some Paul Heyman math here.
But yeah, but he was also, it may not have been much. It may have been $500 or whatever. But yeah, he was he had a contract.
I made $40 per match plus my $500 per diem. But again, it's he's Man of the Year, and it appears that on the back of the release of his new movie, which debuted at #1 and was also destroyed by critics. I saw that the couple of reviews here in New York just destroyed the fucking show. You'd never see anything as brutal. But here he is trying to, I guess, put more of the Dwayne Johnson fluff out there. Well, Jim, we have to also talk about what was in those articles early in the year that caused him to need some positive spin as this big Christmas movie comes out.
Well, this has been on the show here. Probably the biggest rock-related controversy is, does he or does he not urinate in water containers? Pee in a bottle. Pee in a bottle. It was like the Police song, right? And we've been trying to find out some kind of corroboration here, and they addressed this practice or this rumor or whatever. They addressed it.
Well, Jim, of course, he responded to some of these stories from, what was it, The Wrap earlier this year?
The Wrap.
About his peeing in bottles. No confirmation if Brian Gewirtz is the person carrying these bottles, but...
Well, they said a lot of things. They said he was late. The crew and the cast was frustrated. They cost the production money. And then also they said he peed in the bottle.
But it wasn't just late. It was like... Was it 12 hours late? It was ridiculous.
Chronically late.
It was like a ridiculous amount of money, amount of time he was late. Yeah.
He came in at 3 o'clock in the morning. He was supposed to be there for lunch. That type of thing.
In decades of public life, most celebrities will at some point wander into a scandal. Real or manufactured. But it took all the way until 2024 for Johnson to meaningfully find one. Earlier this year, the online trade publication The Wrap published a piece alleging that Johnson was chronically late to the set of Red One, frustrating his fellow cast and crew, and costing the production what The Wrap suggested was a considerable amount of money.
See, to here again, most celebrities will at some point wander into a scandal, real or manufactured, but it took all the way until the time they caught him. The Wrap alleged, the Wrap suggested, their GQ ain't standing behind their fellow yellow journalists, are they?
The piece also alleged, as Johnson helpfully supplies to me himself, that, quote, I pee in a bottle while working. A beat? Yeah, that happens. What about the late part of the story? Yeah, that happens too. But not that amount, by the way. That was a bananas amount. That's crazy. Ridiculous. Johnson says that overall, the controversy was bullshit. And now's the part where everyone who works on this film that they're actively promoting right now has to say nice things about him. The male J-Lo. Every part of this is manufactured.
But what about the puppy?
Is it his dog? Does it say it's his dog?
I don't know. I hope it is. But I mean, well, here's the Evans fellow, the co-star. Is that Chris Evans or Bob Evans? Maybe it's Bob Evans.
I think it's Chris Evans, the co-star.
But yeah, he says nice things about him, and then some other people say nice things about him. Then he says some more nice things about himself. Well, this is an amazing piece.
All right. Oh, I'm watching the video now. Here's him fishing with the writer.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the fishing alone right there, that I'm telling you, that won Middle America over.
And I'm watching this interview, and just the interview is so... Because again, everything Dwayne Johnson does is performing for a camera, and we know that because everything we see is him performing for a camera. So it's just more of the usual bullshit.
Boy, I tell you what, it will never be over. The Rock couldn't put you down with a steel-toed boot, Brian. Couldn't put you out with a steel-toed boot. And it will never be over.
I've got knives up the gazoo. I could throw them.
Boy,
slice 'em.
no wonder you're in such a mood today. If you've got knives up the gazoo or the wazoo, what is it up of yours?
Well, is there a difference between wazoo and gazoo? I guess there is.
Well, yes, because the great gazoo from the Flintstones would like to have a word with you. Nobody ever compared him to an asshole. But nevertheless.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to, speaking of, I don't know, assholes and people on television, I've also got to ask you this, because you're not only the GQ correspondent, but you're up to date.
No, I'm not.
You're not up to date?
I'm up to date. I have nothing to do with GQ magazine.
Okay, well, you're with the generation of people that are watching the TV that's not real TV. It's streaming stuff, they call it, right?
Yeah, that generation. I'm 44. I'm in the middle of civilization. I believe they're calling that generation right now that watches.
Well,
streaming.
They ought to call it pissing instead of streaming, because that's what these companies, they're just pissing all over you because it don't work. It don't work. You can't just magically send signals through the air. That's ridiculous. You need the cable so you can plug the cable TV into the wall and get the cable. But apparently...
What about antennas? You were against antenna?
Well, no, because that was the way that fucking General David Sarnoff intended television to be.
But that's the same thing. It's over the air.
Well, I'm over it. But now a lot of people may be over the Netflix because they done botched up, didn't they? The big Mike Tyson fight. They've got a bunch. It was right here on the local news here in Louisville, Kentucky, that the people are in uproar over Netflix because it buffered. It just buffered, and there was all kinds of tech. And they may have shown Mike Tyson's unclothed ass. That was on my news also here, the morning news. Did you hear about this?
Well, I watched the event.
Did you see Mike Tyson's naked ass?
Unfortunately, I did not. I think that must have been after the bout, and I was already, as soon as the bout was over, I was gone.
No, he wasn't naked in the ring. No, that would have been that would have been the reason why he fucking lost.
No. I think it was after the bout, right? When he was like in his locker room again.
Yeah,
I was already gone by that point.
Locker room, taking his clothes off. Well, they showed people
I had already seen enough of this shit that I didn't want to watch anymore, so I didn't see that, no.
But the point I'm making is that there's a tenuous connection at best to wrestling, and that Mike Tyson has made wrestling-related appearances, obviously one major one in particular, at WrestleMania, but also that dipshit Paul, what's his, Otis Paul, what is his, Billy Paul?
Jake Paul?
Jake Paul. I couldn't remember what Logan Paul's brother's name was, but he has the connection to Logan Paul, who has the connection to wrestling. But the big connection to wrestling is how the fuck, if Netflix can't stream a live fight in November, how are they going to stream live wrestling in January? Riddle me that, Batman. Is there reason for us to worry?
I thought the stream worked pretty good early on. By the time you got to the last two bouts...
otherwise than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play?
Well, listen, I'm telling you. It was good up until the women's bout, which was a real barn burner. But there were points where all of a sudden I had no audio. And then all of a sudden the stream just stopped. And then I pulled it up on my computer and my TV. And when one stream would stop, I'd start the other one up again and go back and forth. But it was a problem. However, I don't think Raw is going to have the same problem they had, where they had 60 million households worldwide tune in for Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. I believe it's worldwide. Yeah, worldwide.
Well, that would be a wide, wonderful world, but what difference does it make if they're sending a signal out?
See, man, of people trying to access it.
Well, wouldn't they? Well, I guess, yeah, that's true. Hotchkiss Featherbottom taught me something about that. I guess you're right.
It says here, I have the Netflix official printout from their PR team. A record-breaking night for Netflix. 60 million households watched the Paul versus Tyson main event live around the world, peaking at 65 million concurrent streams. Nearly 50 million households, globally, tuned in live for the co-main event of Serrano versus Taylor 2. That was the women's boxing bout. Additionally, the bout is likely to be the most watched professional women's sporting event in U.S. history. So it may have been a shit show as an overall event. You didn't see any of it? You didn't watch any of it?
No, I was watching Svengoolie. Are you out of your mind on a Saturday night? And that's
it was Friday. It was Friday. It was against SmackDown.
Oh, well, then I wouldn't have known that it was on anyway.
Oh.
Because I didn't give a shit. I could not give two shits whether Mike Tyson drops dead or turns blue right now, nor about Logan Paul's brother, to be quite honest with you.
I think it was a work.
I'm a busy man.
I think it was a work.
Well, what makes you, now that you've thrown that accusation out there, what gives you that impression?
Again, it was, I forget exactly. I think it was 8 rounds, 2 minutes a round. Heavier gloves than usual because of Mike Tyson's age. It looked like early on Tyson stopped himself and all of a sudden was fighting a different fight. And then he started just biting his glove a lot.
What?
Almost like he was stopping himself from doing something. But there are rumors that, because Jake
biting his glove? Are you sure? What did was it painted like the other guy's ear?
Jake Paul got $40 million. Tyson got $20 million.
Oh, Jesus.
And the rumor is Tyson wouldn't have got that money if he had just knocked Jake Paul out. It was $20 million based on the idea, I think, from what the rumor is, of getting to the finish and having it go to a decision.
So wait a minute now. I would like to have somebody.
And watching this bout, I don't know. It felt like a work. I'm not saying Jake Paul can't box, but put him in there with a real boxer with real rounds and everything. I'd like to see that. But I don't know. It felt like a fucking work. It felt like such a work. It felt like a work.
But now, if the rumor and supposition, I would like to see somebody investigate that further. And it was the pay more per round. They're getting paid for time instead of fucking result. That's interesting.
Yeah. And if I'm wrong, someone correct me and tell me what the story is. But there's something going around, like there's different stories going around about people who think it was a work. And it seemed like a work to me. It felt like early UFC freak show kind of thing, but a work. And I liked it. Honestly, I'd rather watch like Giants against Freaks or, whatever the fuck than like modern UFC. It doesn't do it for me anymore. Just everyone trains the same way in that they cross-train. They train for everything. I like it better when it's like, this guy's big and fat. What the fuck can he do against this guy over here? He seems like he could be a badass, but he's 5'9". What's going to happen? That's the shit I want. So it appealed to me, and then it was like a Floyd Mayweather fight. Nothing happened. It was like two guys just popping around doing nothing.
You want giants versus freaks and people versus women.
I didn't say that. People versus women. That was not. Nope.
When you said, and there was like 3 or 4 people and a woman involved.
But going back to this to get away from your disparaging comments that we'll speak about later.
I'm sorry. I just,
The 60 million households is more than likely more than WWE's going to get. Who knows? Who knows what for WrestleMania? Hot. But for every week, for Raw, I don't think they would get anywhere near there. Do you?
I can't see how or why.
And WrestleMania is still on Peacock. And WrestleMania is still on Peacock currently, so they've been able to do it there pretty well.
Well, but again, we're not privy to the exact numbers, but is there a goddamn snowball's chance in hell that 60 million people are watching WrestleMania? I mean, even around the world, is that?
Households, it says here. 60 million households.
Okay, well, and most people these days live by themselves. It's more peaceful that way.
Oh my God, the commentating. I don't want to say anything bad about Mauro Ranallo, because I like him and everything, but it was a bit much, it felt like at times. And they paired him up with Roy Jones Jr., the former boxer.
You doesn't got to call him Junior.
Who he ended up arguing with during the main event about the frequency of Mike Tyson biting his gloves in the past. And the third person in the booth? Rosie Perez, the actress.
What?
She's from Brooklyn and she likes boxing. That was really it. You grew up in Mike Tyson's neighborhood and you love boxing. You're on the team. That's all it was. It was incredible. It was such a weird
Are they
event.
trying to give Mauro Ranallo some kind of mental stress by teaming him up with a Rosie Perez and Roy Jones Jr.?
It was really something. And the best thing was the ring announcer. And his name was Big Mo. I forget what his real name was, but they called him Big Mo. And he was like a classic ring announcer with the big voice. And it didn't sound like one of the people now. It's like almost like, I'm trying to sing without singing, you know, whatever the fuck they're doing. Like, he was like a classic announcer. The problem is he looked like he was like 6'7". So he would tower over all the wrestlers, Big Mo. But I thought he was good. And they had some beautiful women in the ring. This one girl's become famous now for her bosom.
I gotta watch it now.
I said bosom. I didn't say tits like AEW.
All right. Well, just remember, may the breast woman win.
Ah. I wish I had a witty come back to that, but I don't. But that was it.
Well,
that was
all right.
The big event. And it says something, though. Again, Netflix has been doing a lot of live streaming stuff. They did the Cat Williams comedy event live, the roast of Tom Brady. They've been experimenting with a lot of things. I think they'll be good for Raw. But I think when you have something where you have 60 million, according to them, 60 million households, that's a lot of people trying to access that feed. I'll bet they're better prepared next time, but you know, I don't think this really is I don't think this is indicative of what they're going to do for Raw.
But, you know, that's a lesson. They had too many mouths to feed.
Rosie Perez on the comedy.
Well, yeah, and thanks for the memories. But anyway, I'll tell you, you know what's the matter with most of the boxers and the UFC fighters these days? It's not so bad with a lot of the wrestlers, at least the main event, the major league wrestlers, it's not bad. But even with the indie wrestlers, it's bad. But you know what's bad with all of those people I just mentioned?
No, what?
The fucking hair all over their face. They're goddamn hairy. They got hairy cheeks. They got hairy palms. They got hairy eyebrows. They got hairy foreheads. They got the hair all the way down to their turkey necks. They got hair everywhere. Except some of them don't have any hair on their head. But they need to remove some of this. Stand out, look clean, be distinctive. Let people see your face. Let people see your expression. Don't look like a cross between Wild Bull Curry in your eyebrows and Pampiro Furpo in your beard to where we have to fucking spread your face out with a speculum to see what your nose looks like. Did you get a picture of what I just said there, Brian? Can you see that happening right there?
Well, no. Yes to the first part, no to the second part.
Well, anyway, our friends at Harry's, Brian, it's coming up on the holidays.
Indeed it is. Yes, it is.
Yes, and our friends at Harry's are going to get you cleaned up because we've got some of our audience needs some maintenance. We've gotten some, as a matter of fact, some communications from some of you men's female better halves out there. And they're saying, Jim, Brian, they won't listen to us. Maybe they'll listen to you. Try to sell them the Harry's. We need clean faces. We need good smelling people laying next to us on the couch late at night watching television. And the deodorants and the lotions and the body wash and the hair gel that Harry's offers at harrys.com. Well, they're just swell. And they smell like pretty flowers and or manly scents like sticks and trees and rocks and things.
That's not really it exactly, but
redwood and wildlands and stone.
The right scent for you as a man.
Yes, some people smell like a marsh, and you don't want that. And
that's a marshman.
Well, it's a marshmallow. And they've got extra strength, high quality, amazing smelling deodorant for only $5 that, again, a number of people have mentioned that some of you guys could use out there. But it's all about the shaving, Brian. The way you're gonna look and feel so fresh because the German engineered blades stay sharp longer. And they'll give you a smooth shave every time, but the weighted razor handle that's ergonomically designed to fit comfortably in your hand will prevent you from slicing your Adam's apple. And then, because if you slice your Adam's apple and you don't have any peanut butter,
you won't. No,
spread all over
no.
it. Oh boy, I tell you.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't have to worry about any of that. Any of
Well,
that
that's
at
a
all.
home remedy.
It's a
And
problem you won't have, ladies and gentlemen.
there's to these blades, there's a flexible hinge designed to fit the contour of your face. So even if you're a hydroencephaloptic head or a Lolo contendere head, where you're longer or you're taller or you're wider or whatever, why, you'll just be gliding all over your face. No matter how disfigured you are or how repulsive you are to polite society, as far as the misshapen nature of your oblong face.
Man, your phone's doing a lot. I'll tell you, your phone is nonstop today.
Well, I'm popular. It's getting on the holidays. I've got a big Christmas list. But anyway, our friends at Harry's, they're going to, and guess what they've got?
Syphilis.
No, for heaven's sake, they've got a craft set for the holidays. And Harry's holiday craft set features the razor, the beautiful handle, and the 2 extra blades, by the way, the choice of foaming shave gel or shave cream, a travel blade color, and you don't need to gift wrap because it comes in a rich, sleek green gift box that will stand out where people will just see something green and go, what the fuck is that green thing? And you can personalize if you want to make a gift or if you want somebody to have something to identify your corpse with at some point in a lonely, cheap hotel room.
What?
You can personalize, well, if they're going through doing a forensic examination.
Let's plan on dying at home, ladies and gentlemen. Let's think about dying at home with Harry's.
It's a clue if you have your initials engraved on your razor as to who you are and maybe what's happened.
Why wouldn't your wallet be there?
Well, it depends on who left the room after you died, and that would get into your personal picadillos, Brian. I don't think we want to cover that on the air.
So they left with your wallet, but they left your fancy razor?
Well, of course they did, because that was up your ass at the time, and they didn't notice it. Personalized.
Oh, it was one of those kind of parties. I see.
With the available engraving options. And it's a risk-free purchase because Harry's offers a 100% money-back guarantee and or helping you extract the razor from your ass. If you order by December 12th, you will receive your holiday craft set by Christmas. So and for 50% off, by the way, that's what I'm fixing to tell you. If you go to harrys.com, HARRYS, harrys.com/JCE, 50% off the price of the Harry's Holiday Craft Set. That would be a wonderful stocking stuffer, or it's more like a face slicker, because it'll make your face slicker for the man who needs, or possibly the woman. We don't want to be sexist. There can be bearded women. If the woman in your life has a long beard down to her navel or at least sternum area and you want to do something about it, this would be a perfect stocking stuffer for her because her panties are probably stuffed. If she's got that long of a beard, I'd have to think her pubic hair is
all right. Listen, we've gone once again. Once again, we've gone a step too far. We're going to go right back, and we are going to end this by telling the good people one more time where they can get in touch or how they can get from. There's a relationship that could happen with you and Harry's. How can they get there, Jim?
Harrys.com/JCE, 50% off the holiday craft set. Order by December 12th to get it by Christmas and just please people with this. And the foaming shave gel or shave cream that you pick can also be used as a lubricant for marital aids. Thank you.
Once again, Harry's for your face. If you have a beard and mustache, take care of it the right way with Harry's. That's what you should remember. One more time, Jim, what's the very simple form without any opinion or conjecture? What's that promo link that people need to remember?
Yes, it's harrys.com/JCE.
All right, there it is. Thank you, Harry's. We love you.
All righty, Brian, we got to up the professionalism a little bit on the show here. We can't just be some Jack Yankovic on the program or something. We're stars here. We're celebrities.
See, people aren't going to know. They're going to think you got the name Weird Al Yankovic, Miss. I can't even speak. People are going to think all sorts of things this week. That's what we've got to accept.
Let them think what they want.
Got to accept it. All right. Hey, I wanted to tell you something. Last night, my daughter, who's 6, comes into my office, and it was one of those times where she was inquisitive about who I work with.
Yeah.
And she's like, what about that guy? And I'm like, who are you talking about? And she goes, the guy in the artwork, because she sees the pictures. She doesn't get to hear them, but she sees what the pictures are for YouTube. And I said, oh, that's Jim. Would you like to see video of Jim? And she said, yes. So the first thing I thought of was the scaffold. So like, this would get her into like who I'm working with. How cool is this guy? She asked questions. She wanted to know why you were getting chased up there. And I said, well, the good guys were finally going to get their hands on him. So they chased him to the top with the intention to throw him off. But he went underneath and he fell on his own.
Tried to evade.
So he was a bad guy? Well, back then he was a bad guy. And she kind of got quiet. And she's like, so you work with a bad guy? I'm like, no, but he's different now. I don't want to break kayfabe. I don't want to say, listen, it was all work. I don't want to say it. But I'm like, no, he's different now. He was younger then. And let me show you another thing. And I showed her you giving Ronnie Garvin the fireball, because I'm just trying to think, what would be cool to a kid to see? And again, why did she throw a fireball? Why did he throw a fireball at him? I'm like, well, there really wasn't a good reason for it at all. There was no reason.
Stop him from winning the belts.
Yeah, but then I tried to change topic. I'm like, but look.
Then she's going to think, is he going to set Daddy on fire?
Well, I tried to change the topic. I said, look, it was a wonderful thing. It caused this family to get back together. His brother had gotten flamboyant and didn't want to really have a relationship with him, and this made them come together. And
wait a minute, Daddy, you mean he scared him straight because he was gay before?
Well, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that Jimmy Garvin was a flamboyant heel who had nothing to do with Ron Garvin. They were on the same roster, and it was almost like they lived in two different worlds. And this brought them together. This is like I'm explaining it to my daughter all over again. And she looked at me with a blank face like I'm sure you have right now.
Like I'm right now, yeah.
But yeah, I didn't want to break kayfabe and say he was one of the greatest performers of all time. I keep just saying, well, he was a bad guy back then. I showed her you hitting the dudes with the racket. I see all those people were cheering.
But then the people cheered. Yeah, that's when he finally redeemed himself, when he knocked out these insufferable douchebag baby faces.
She thought the people looked angry when they jumped up with their arms in the air. Like, yeah, finally! And she thought they were bad too.
Well, it was Troy, New York. So
yeah. Although the advertising was like a picture of Flair and Funk like over Manhattan.
Manhattan. Yeah. No buildings in Troy looked like that. I recall they had a good pizza place. But...
So what do you do though? What do I do? At what point do I've never flat out said it to any of my kids. My older daughter finally figured it out on her own. My middle daughter, I don't know if she understands. Oh, I think she does, but it's never been said. My youngest daughter believes from the little bit she's seen. At what point should I say anything, or do I?
Well, just 2 years after Santa Claus.
Huh.
So when they're about 14, 15.
How old were you when you found out about Santa Claus?
I think 13 and a half. I think.
Wow.
It was a very confusing year.
You could have used Harry's.
Well, I did, but unfortunately I shaved the wrong thing.
What the fuck? All right, well, that was funny interlude number 1. We now return.
All righty, well, I mentioned that professionalism, so we're going to have to start talking about more wrestling on the program coming up next week. They're doing another pay-per-view, or as some of the boys were still calling it until a few years ago, paper, P-A-P-E-R, the pay-per-view. They're doing another one. They're doing AEW next weekend, and then the WWE's coming back with their response to blow them out of the water, Survivor Series, the following weekend. So it's going to get busy around here. But do we have any firm idea? I know they will add matches on the AEW pay-per-view until about 15 minutes before the countdown show is off the air. But do we have an idea of the main bouts on the program that we're going to be reviewing to our everlasting consternation? Brian, is
what are you
that
doing?
question long enough?
What are you doing over there? What's going on?
I was clicking my ink pen right here. See?
People don't want to hear that.
Well, I'm trying to adopt a William F. Buckley kind of tone over here.
Is that what you're doing?
That's what I'm doing. He had a very sharp pen to go along with his sharp tongue. Or even a Dick Cavett was known to click a Bic every once in a while, I'll have you know. He looked like a Bic clicker the first time I saw him.
All right, listen, I don't know what the hell's happening here
but
this
I'm
week.
asking you, do we have a firm idea of what the card is for the AEW pay-per-view full bore?
Full Gear.
Full Gear.
No bores are hurt in the process.
Well, it could be boring, but what are they showing us so far? What have they announced?
Well, the official AEW website has 10 matches listed.
Oh, Jesus
Christ. Or 10 things listed, I guess I should say.
And we're a week out, not even a week out, a little under a week out, so they'll have to add at least 5 more matches, right?
And it looks like Wikipedia may have the same 9 matches and 1 event listed here. On the 0-hour pre-show event.
Oh, good Lord.
QT Marshall versus Big Boom AJ with Big Justice.
Okay. Is this some fucking Rampage business going on? We know who QT Marshall is. Who is Big Bank Hank? What was the...
Well, I just looked it up.
Who's in the corner? Big fellow?
AJ and Big Justice.
Big Justice.
Who are Andrew AJ Berfumo and Eric Berfumo, who was born in 2012. Known online as AJ and Big Justice, or as...
Wait a minute, he's wrestling a 12-year-old kid?
Or as the Costco guys... are American social media personalities. A father and son duo, they found popularity on TikTok, and YouTube in 2024 for their videos at the warehouse store Costco. Also that year...
Wait a minute, hold on, pause here for a second. Tic-tac, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. What? They make videos going to Costco? And they're celebrities because of that. I go to Costco. Well, I used to go to Costco. Now I sometimes go to Sam's Club.
Do you think it's too easy to get booked for wrestlers?
What the hell? And which one is he wrestling? The 12-year-old and the father's in the corner, or vice versa?
I'm assuming Big Justice is the child. And
Big Justice sounds a lot bigger than Big Boom AJ.
And Big Justice will be in the corner of Big Boom AJ against QT Marshall.
Christ.
Is Big Boom training at QT's gym? Does it say that anywhere here? Also that year, 2024, they just became famous apparently. Also that year, they gained more than 2 million followers on TikTok.
Wait a minute. 2 million people just all of a sudden decided, I got to hear these guys talk about Costco.
They signed with the management company, Night, and released their debut single, We Bring the Boom.
Oh, good Lord.
Does it say anything here about wrestling? AJ created a TikTok account in 2022 while working for the regional manager, for a mortgage business, portraying the character of Mortgage Muscles, who would explain the housing market. His video started to gain popularity. I've never seen any of these. His video started to gain popularity, and he began including his son Eric in them at his request, starting with a video of AJ eating a hamburger in December 2022. And then, it was
followed up by an even bigger video of him pooping the hamburger.
They are set to wrestling a cute. Yep, it says it here. All right, well, they're in the Full Gear 0-hour match. Also on the show, we have a Champagne Championship celebration, whatever that may be, with Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen that video, the champagne bottle celebration. It was a German video.
No, it was Vivid.
No, it was too vivid for Vivid. They would have got put in the penitentiary. No, the champagne bottle, that's worth tuning in on the zero. Mariah May and who?
No, they're not going to go. Well, let me just clarify because I don't want to get sued for false advertising.
No, I'm going to.
There will be no sexual activity with bottles. That's not what this is.
I'm recording the pre-show on this one. If they're doing the champagne bottle celebration, because nobody's topped that since 1987.
They're not doing that, but for the record, this is not the pre-show. This is on the main card.
And it was even the Fadian first.
All right, listen, I don't know what the hell's happening down at the Mouse's ear with you, but this is on the main card. The main card.
Oh.
Obviously.
So the pre-show, after Big Boom and Big Justice gets finished, they've just torn the house down there. So they're just going to go right into the pay-per-view. So champagne bottle celebration. I'll buy that on both TVs.
Jim, in a four-way match for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, the champions Private Party versus the Kings of the Black Throne versus the Acclaimed versus the Outrunners.
And FTR couldn't make that field. The Parties and the Blacks and the Acclaims and the Outrunners.
Well, they're very committed to helping get the Outrunners over.
Well, and a four-way, and boy, that'll just be wonderful.
More action on this card. Action, action, action. Will Ospreay, who, there is no title. Yeah, he's not a champion at all. Versus Kyle Fletcher.
Who is a champion.
Is he?
But his champion ain't his champion. His championship isn't on the line. Didn't he have he was the one that got knocked down and the other guy picked his belt up, wasn't he? He's had a belt here recently.
There's a lot of belts. I'm not sure.
I can't keep track.
Well, this is a big match. Ospreay versus Fletcher. I will have to say, if you're into the best of the modern style, this will probably be the best match on the show, I would have to think.
Yes, they're in shape. They're athletic. If they would restrain themselves from trying to do shit that is so far out of the realm of credibility or possibility that you get into their athletic struggle and the fact that they used to be friends and lived with each other and did all the things they did with each other until this is sudden occurrence between them. It came out of nowhere, apparently, on Ospreay's party. He had no clue it was coming. They tell a fucking story. Yes, I'm hoping that somebody will sit down with them and say, here, try to tell a story through your match instead of playing a video game for 25 minutes.
Well, Jim, also on Full Gear, Roderick Strong versus MJF.
I mean, this is probably better than Adam Cole versus MJF. At least we haven't seen this, I don't think.
At least Roddy looks like a guy who's in shape. He looks like a wrestler.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a big guy, but he looks like he's in shape. Or he is in shape.
Well, he looks like he's fooled everybody. He looks like he's in shape. The problem is that this isn't a money match. And it's not either the participant's fault. Roddy obviously has been booked like I don't know how to explain it. And the whole angle has been fucked up. And Adam Cole, but whatever's happened to him, the people are just like, and everybody's in the wrong position now than they were the last time that everybody was healthy together. It's just snake bit. And to keep continuing this is just wasting everybody's time.
And you know what's weird too? When MJF made his first return earlier this year, he was still a babyface and he confronted and beat up Adam Cole. Everyone was like, okay, good. And everyone said, that's it. They're going to move on from this feud. They gave it some sort of illogical ending, but it was an illogical feud to begin with. And then when Adam Cole came back, they brought it back. And I'm sorry, this feud is hanging around MJF's neck. I know he's not even there. I'm guessing he's going to do the pay-per-view and they go right back to the film set. I'm sure everyone in that company wishes they were in that position right now. But yeah, it's an MJF
Well,
match just to have one.
and that's the thing, is that there's no money match, as we'll get to when we go down the rest of them. But think back on their bigger pay-per-views. You had at one point MJF and Punk, or you had MJF and Danielson, or you had Sting's retirement match, a money match that you knew that not only was the same standard number of hardcore aficionados, but regular folks were interested in this. It was a story. It wasn't just because it was going to be a great match. It was a story with a build and people that you cared about, and you understood why they were mad at each other. They managed to achieve that a few times. Now they're just putting shit together. There's no money match, and there's top guys in the ring with guys they'll have good matches with. Go ahead, talk. Yeah. Tell us some more of the good matches.
And actually, now that I think about it, MJF really doesn't have to leave the film set and fly anywhere. This is Newark, New Jersey. And he's filming in New Jersey from what I read.
Could they have a cinematic match on set so he doesn't even have to clock out?
Jim, on Full Gear, we also have Swerve Strickland versus Bobby Lashley. That's interesting.
Well, here's the problem again, becomes if they beat Lashley in his first match, then they're out of their minds. And I thought it was early for Swerve to beat Shelton, because they could have built Shelton as a bigger threat. If they're going to rush this like this, then Swerve's got to get beat. But if Swerve gets beat a lot or left laying a lot. So they've rushed into this, and they've tried to do the standard thing of getting heat on something or somebody by Swerve beat Shelton, and then Lashley came out and fucking hurt locked him. And if Swerve wins this, then they've just wasted everybody's fucking time.
This past weekend, as we are recording, I had Collision on the background monitor in the office while I was working. I think Svengoolie may have been on the main monitor. I know, because I wasn't really into the movie, so I turned it off. But Shelton Benjamin, as far as I'm concerned, worked a far too competitive, this should have been ended a lot quicker. Come on, guys, end this match with Commander.
Oh, good Lord.
The guy who walks on the ropes and runs on the ropes and does his move off the ropes while he's standing on the ropes while you're helping him balance himself. That Commander, of that fame, that Commander.
Of that fame, of that ilk.
Well, Jim, who do you predict will win, Bobby Lashley?
He better.
I didn't even ask you that. Who do you think's going to win, MJF, Roderick Strong?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Unless that movie set is going to be a shoot like Heaven's Gate and is going to take the next year and a half, MJF needs to win this, obviously. I think they're going to do something here to continuate the deal with Adam Cole. Hadn't watched, but I bet you. And they're putting MJF on the pay-per-view, so he's got a match on the pay-per-view. And, otherwise, this is it's a TV match to set up what they're going to do next.
Who do you think is going to win, Ospreay versus Fletcher?
Oh, probably Felcher, because Ospreay will want to, do a favor for his, lifelong friend that he's obviously enthusiastic about working with in this spot. And to be honest, to protect Ospreay is an investment somewhat. I think this is the part where Ospreay could beat him and he could turn around and lay Ospreay out afterwards and be a sore loser, because the kid ain't good enough yet, but he's an asshole. That might get him more heat. So Ospreay will probably put him over.
Jim, also at Full Gear, we have a big grudge match. Hangman Adam Page versus Jay Sinkhole White.
Sinkhole. Can neither one of them win, please? I mean, that's just... Jay White hasn't been a babyface for long enough, or established as a babyface, or the reason for him being one after being a whiny heel for a year and a half. And honestly, the whole fake tough guy replacing the fake cowboy thing with Paige is just bleh. None of the above.
All right, no prediction there. Jim, for the TNT Championship in the Twink division, Jack Perry versus Daniel Garcia.
They're going to do that?
For the TNT Championship.
Well, which one's the better friend of the Lollipop Guild? Would it be Perry or would it be, is Garcia a new darling of the moment?
You got to think Garcia just re-signed. Perry's character friends have all gone home so they could be rebooted as the people who save AEW.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Garcia, let him have the belt for a while.
Jim, for the
at least he'll be able to walk upright when he's wearing it instead of Perry.
For the TBS Championship, Mercedes Moné with Camille versus Chris Statlander.
I mean, I think Mercedes, rigor mortis, Mercedes Moné, get some of her sauce. She's going to win. She's not going to lose the belt. She ought to. Statlander could actually be a legitimate talent of some description if they give her a consistent look and a consistent push. Mercedes Moon is the biggest bomb since Nagasaki, and Camille is now meaningless because of the stupidity that surrounds everything Mercedes does, whether it's her own shit or the shit of her personal writers.
Will you put that pen down?
I'm sorry. I just got my new ballpoint pen. It's addictive.
It's new?
It's a Pilot G2. And it writes easily. It just glides across the paper.
Does it get too wet? Sometimes when you write with that kind of ink, it gets a little wet.
No, it doesn't. It stays dry. Well, it's wet, but it's dry. It's not blotty.
Don't you think you're going to mess it up by clicking it nonstop?
I'm going to mess you up by clicking you nonstop. If you don't let me, I'll put my upside your lips. Boom, I'll tell you what.
Outside my lips, really?
I'll go upside your lips.
Oh, upside.
I'm saying to you, sucker.
So I said outside. I didn't realize you said upside.
And Esther, don't tell me I'll come over there.
All right, well, this is degenerating into, who do you think's going to win? Monet versus
Mercedes is going to win, and it's going to suck because everything she does sucks because she's the shits.
Now, let's see where they put that on the card. That's the other interesting thing. Whatever match goes first has a good shot at getting the most reaction, and then it's downhill from there. The main event for the AEW World Championship.
We're at the main event already? Jesus Christ.
Well, let's see. It's the week of the pay-per-view. They may add another 6 matches.
Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is this the first time ever in AEW history 6 singles matches and then a 4-way? But 6 singles matches already. Maybe he's finally figuring out we can't find people in those multi-man messes, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah, he's figuring plenty out. The main event for the AEW World Championship, the champion Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy.
They're actually going to do that as the main event.
Because Tony's figured stuff out. This is him figuring stuff out.
Oh, boy. There's no co-match or co-main event match that...
With who?
You know, with anybody, well, that you could say, okay, Backlund's on top, but look, it's Bruno and fucking Zbyszko underneath, or what, whatever.
Who's that person? Who do they have? I mean, Takeshita's not on the show. He's the international champion, but...
Danielson's gone.
The Bucks, for Bucks fans, they're gone. Omega, he's returning in New Japan before he helps save AEW.
Yeah, he said they don't need him in AEW right now. They're doing so good, they don't need him.
Although you never know with him what's real and what's, bullshit online character. But beyond that, who? Miro? Powerhouse Hobbs has returned. He's not on the show. I guess Ricky Starks could have come back for the show, but they got nothing for him.
But he still likes Cody.
I saw something earlier today that Danhausen is still under contract until the summer of 2025, and he has not heard from anyone in AEW in like 6 months.
You
So,
mean to tell me they couldn't have done something with Powerhouse Hobbs as a big monster heel that would put the only guy on this card that can draw any fucking money as a babyface is Osprey. And they've already made him kind of one of the boys and also to put him in a position where he's trying to elevate somebody else with Kyle. And you've got literally the company joke in the main event against the world champion who
against Orange Cassidy.
What? I mean, that's I was going to say the company joke versus the company mascot, maybe, however you phrase it. What? This is
yeah, I mean, there's no star power, and even Osprey, like you said, he was in the main stuff. It was him and MJF. This was a big part of the show. And I'm not saying I dislike everything with him and Fletcher, but it is a step back from being in the main event picture. But of course, Tony wanted to run with Jon Moxley's vision of Mad Max without dirt. I don't know what it is, just terrible.
Do you think he being Moxley, actually is so bereft of cognitive thought that he thinks that he'll get a ton of heat when he slaughters pockets? That audience likes the idiot enough that, they'll just hate Moxley when he eviscerates him and does whatever he does to him like a fish with a rusty fishing knife?
I think Moxley's a dangerous kind of idiot because he's the kind of idiot who doesn't understand that his ideas are bad. It's the other side.
He's eloquent enough also for people who don't know what the fuck that they're talking about, that he can convince them that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, based on whatever movie he just watched.
Yes, in his own somewhat unlearned, uneducated way, he's very articulate.
Well, that's AEW Full Gear. Boy, that's, they used to pack these shows and you say, wow, they put so much stuff on here. And they would have long matches that, when you think back, like, man, they had like matches that were really exciting. There's nothing. I mean, like I said, Osprey versus Fletcher, I'm intrigued to see. Not really looking forward to the MJF match. I want to see Lashley swerve because I want to see if they're going to do it right or if it's going to be just another long, way too long swerve match that's even Steven until the end. Jay White.
That'll destroy Lashley's aura, because if you brought it, actually, they need to Vader this thing, Vader and Inoki. Because think about this, what has been getting over a positive reaction in front of the people that exist in the arenas consistently over the past several weeks, MVP and the Hurt Syndicate, whether it be Shelton, the introduction of Lashley or whatever. Is Lashley going to be competitive in his very first match in the company? And before you're afraid of Frankenstein, before you've even seen him chase villagers, you already know he's scared of fire and all this other stuff? Or is he going to come out and bombard and dismantle Swerve in about 2.5 minutes and make a fucking statement?
The question is, unless it was coming from Bobby Lashley or MVP, and unless they were allowed to do that, who's going to understand that's the right thing? Tony's not, because Tony never understands the right thing.
But no, you would. Well,
Swerve and Will Washington aren't going to recognize that's the right thing, don't you think?
Hopefully somebody would go and say, and not just him, just no-sell him and just beat him one tackle pancake, but you do the flurry ahead of time where Shelton gets in the way or MVP incites some fucking something, and let Swerve wipe out Shelton as a sacrificial lamb in this instance. But in doing that, Lashley gets the upper hand and doesn't lose it. And fucking hammers him and beats him flat because he never saw it coming after he got distracted by the manager and almost Pearl Harbored by the other guy that he did something impressive to. And then he's got an out, but you haven't even You haven't even given away the first match yet because you might do it differently if this was not Bobby Lashley's first match with anybody in the company. But he can't look like a normal guy that just takes bumps like everybody else before that they think he's a monster. Can he?
He shouldn't, but again, AEW history, guys who come in quickly get made one of the others. They're quickly just another guy doing another. They're just another. Same matches, same length of the matches, same back and forth. Nothing's ever different. Finishing running down the card. Not interested in Hangman Page versus Jay White. Not interested in Jack Perry versus Daniel Garcia. Mercedes Moné and Statlander I'm interested in because the awkwardness of how quiet it gets during the Mercedes Moné matches. I want to see how it works out here. And then Moxley versus Orange Cassidy. No Darby. You asked about star power. I guess Darby's the guy we're not thinking of.
Yeah. They still like him.
I'm sure he'll be there for the main event, but that is a sorry lineup.
Well, because that's got to be where they're going, but they're just, sacrificing this pay-per-view to get there with Darby and Moxley. But, and what building are they in?
They are in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center.
Did that used to be the Meadowlands or?
No. That's the different area altogether.
Well, New Jersey, they got more than one arena in New Jersey now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's different parts of the state, of course.
Well, you just act like I didn't know New Jersey got that big.
I feel like you know these things and you're difficult with me just because it's me.
Well, point is, how big is this fucking place?
Let me double check that, but right now, as of this weekend, according to WrestleTix, they had 7,407 tickets distributed. And the last time there was January for Dynamite, only 5,924. So this is up from that so far. And let me see what capacity is.
And 7,400 for them these days is not that bad of a turnout. Not at all.
16,755. 16,755.
Okay, so they're going to have half a house. That's better than normal.
All right. And luckily, they'll be in front of that very forgiving Northeast New York crowd.
Oh, good Lord.
And that's Full Gear. We'll be talking about it again in a few days to find out what happened. But Jim, let's travel through time. All right, we are in the future. A fun, happy future we are in. And here's Mr. Fun and Happy himself, Jim Cornette.
We had to take a little break. Had to just compose ourselves before we go any further. But now we're back. We're ready to go. They had a Smackdown event on November the 15th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The home of the Crusher, the city that the Crusher built. And they had a lot of people there, but I don't know how many they had. They didn't brag it was sold out or anything, but it looked like a good crowd. And they had some good speeches. I thought some interesting scenes on this week's program. Possibly they'll do an actor's studio special on the making of this film. Oh, and they had some wrestling matches in the middle. Did you see any of the wrestling matches, or were you just there for the dramatic renderings?
Maybe as you mention them, I'll remember, but the only things I remember are the things that should get Paul Heyman a fucking Emmy. I'm all on board now. Get Paul Heyman a fucking Emmy. Just give it to him.
Just an Emmy, a Grammy, a Tony, Oscar.
No, I don't want him to have a Tony. I think that may ruin the creativity. I want him to have everything else. But if people in wrestling stay away from Tony, usually they get more creative.
What about a Slammy?
Well, that's like an insult at this point.
Hey, I'm a Slammy Award winner, you son of a bitch.
Do you have the Slammy Award?
Well, yes, they gave it to me.
I didn't know if they really let you have it or if they just take it back and put it in the warehouse.
They let me have it all right, but no, they handed it to me and I never offered to give it back and nobody came and grabbed it, so it's sitting over here in the office.
Well, those are rather rare.
How many of they can't be rare? They did several Slammies that they gave out.
It's not like the Emmys where they give out like 10,000 Emmys every year.
Well, I guess I am in a more rarefied air, a more exclusive group, but I'm not sure that I want to join a club that would have me as a member.
You see, and that's the other thing, too, that works when people say, oh, Jim should get involved and he should manage the Outlaw Bloodline. You wouldn't have to go to the ring and do anything. You could just do backstage little acting segments.
I tell you, me and Heyman could just sit in the room and fucking snipe at each other.
People would pay for that. People would pay.
I tell you what, I'm gonna take the first step. I'm gonna get my phone disconnected like Heyman did, and then see where that leads.
Well, you're playing spoiler, but but again, that's my point. To my point, I remember the things that happened. I don't remember the matches and the things that didn't contain the people in the things that happened.
in the things. Give me that, give me that, give me that, give me that thing, give me that, give me. So, should we talk about the program? Because they're not only doing things, they're making points. Like the point you just made about the thing. The first segment, and I'll admit there's some loopholes. Why is Nick Aldis telling Kevin Owens don't come to the building, but they'll play his videos from him sitting in his fucking rental car? And he always, seems to show up when he's needed anyway. But at the same point, again, this is wrestling. They are making a hold or a move dangerous. They've decided, okay, this is a revolutionary thought. Let's make the pile driver illegal. Let's make the pile driver dangerous, so every time somebody either gets a pile driver or goes to give somebody a pile driver, the people are going to go ape shit. Oh, no, don't do that to him. Oh, shit. I wish somebody had thought of this before.
Really, it's impressive when you think about the fact it comes on the heels of them getting Bronson Reed's splash. Oh,
yes.
Something that he was just doing and no one cared about. He's still doing it. And now it's something that gets people up on their feet.
Yes, it's like he tries to go to the top. Oh, shit, don't let him do that. God damn it. That's the idea. A big splash and a pile driver. They've been doing them since Wild Bill Longson and Martin the Blimp Levy, right?
Levy,
you say potato, I say you're distracting from my point. But it's simple shit that people can do and do safely. And they're getting carried out from it. And it's causing the fans to go, oh, shit, whenever somebody tries to do it. And that is what, remember we did that deal in Johnson City, Tennessee, in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, where Al Snow ended up pile driving Ricky Morton. I think it was in a cage match. Nobody could stop him, whatever the fuck. But he pile drives him once, regular boom, and Ricky's selling. And then he pile drives him on the fucking chair. And oh my God. And we called the ambulance and had him pull right into the building. And the fans watched the EMTs strapping Ricky to the board and loading him in the back of the ambulance. And guys were waiting in the parking lot for Al Snow afterwards. And a couple of women cried. Imagine that.
Coincidentally enough, they were all pregnant with Ricky's babies.
No, now only 3. But that's the point. That's what you do, because it's wrestling. You make the shit that you establish a hold or a move as dangerous, and then you find the guy that can do it well, and then he does it, and people go ape shit over it. Although in this case, be honest, as we mentioned, is a shitty pile driver, but they freaked out over it, so it kind of slipped by. But if it had been Paul Orndorff out there with that pile driver, my God, people would have gone ape shit.
Well, the other thing, too, that really stands out, and it's something that, I hate to always do compare and contrast, but it's something you don't see as much with the other company. The pile driver looked like shit. The way they put the angle over was great, but also Randy Orton's selling.
Yes.
Put it over the top, and that's a big part of what's missing. Seth Rollins is selling when Bronson Reed was giving him the splash, or later on here with Roman. You have to sell things. No one, if you're doing nonstop Canadian destroyers, which are pile drivers in a sense, or tombstone
in some sense,
or tombstone pile drivers nonstop, or whatever it is, and no one sells anything and everyone's just bouncing around still. It's a cool match for people into cool visuals, but it's defeating the actual core purpose of what wrestling's supposed to do.
Well, now we've found what AEW and Tony Khan are good at. Defeating the true purpose of what wrestling is supposed to do. So anyway, Cody comes out to the ring for the in-ring promo and they chant it, etc. And all he has to do is say, well, Kevin Owens, he mentions the name, he crossed the line, I want to see him right now. That's all he did. Here comes Owens. Or I'm sorry, here comes Aldis instead. And is it new, his haircut that's new, that he's bald on both sides of his head?
Who are you talking about here, Aldis?
Nick Aldis.
I did not even notice, so I can't tell you.
I just noted, I thought it was a new haircut, but I wish men who have hair wouldn't cut it off.
Well, that's a very wrestling thing, especially wrestling in the 90s, like having hair on top and just shaving the sides.
Well, yeah, but he's a goddamn executive now. He needs to look like a normal person. But anyway, that's Aldis tells the story that the pile driver is banned, and it's been banned because we don't want guys in wheelchairs in 20 years. Imagine that. And then he said, and Owens is not going to be here, not going to be allowed in this arena or the arenas until we figure out what to do about this. I think, why was it taking you so long? I know they're trying, but there's a little loophole. Why is it taking them so long to figure out what to do about this? But anyway, Cody tells Aldis that he's given Owens what he wants. And, you know, he wants to be the center of attention like this. And Aldis said he's not letting the inmates run the asylum. And Owens is not going to be here until this is resolved internally. And Cody makes the pitch to Aldis. You were a wrestler. You know what this means.
Let me stop you, because I thought it was interesting. He says, you were a wrestler. You still are a wrestler.
Well, he said it in the deep down type of thing. You still are a man, a wrestler, a competitor. I still don't think that they're teasing, trying to get Aldis involved wrestling at this point. But he appealed to his sense of competitive spirit, let's say. And Randy Orton's a friend of mine. He means so much to me. And it was because of him that Owens did what he did. And, you know, he's like, do I have to beat Owens' ass in his front yard? And again, I said, as preposterous as that sounds, you know, AEW would do it. And so anyway, Cody made the big appeal to Aldis, but he said, hey, the ball's in your court, but I'm not going to wait too long before he takes matters into his own hands. So, are you interested in Cody and Owens?
You know, I am interested in where they're going, and I thought Cody did a good job here, coming off a few really pretentious promos. I mean, the first thing that was a good start was him coming out there with a shirt on with cut-off sleeves as opposed to dressed like some fancy turn-of-the-century barber or whatever the fuck he's doing. Standing outside his place, come on in, get a shave. I thought Cody did a good job because the angry Cody, the mad Cody, the motivated Cody is the best one. It really is the only one that works. Otherwise, he's just giving speeches to like the middle school auditorium.
Yeah.
So I thought this was good. In terms of the booking of Owens, even before this, remember, they didn't want Randy Orton to get in a ring with him. He's so dangerous. Now he's in his car every week. They had to bring up the Lamborghini. Do you know about that?
No, honestly, I don't. Does he really have a Lamborghini?
Well, this week on social media, I don't know where they originated from, but photos emerged from outside of a taping of Kevin Owens showing Randy Orton his brand new Lamborghini. Which, you know, again, I don't know where they originate from. I don't know if they're new photos, which breaks a lot of kayfabe, a whole lot of kayfabe.
Well, but wait a minute. But besides the fact Owens showing Orton his fucking car, where does Owens live now? Is he still in Canada? Orton's in St. Louis. How were they How did they drive to each other
again,
in some fashion?
I don't know exactly, but the photos were out there all of a sudden this week. So when he brought up that he has a Lamborghini, I was like, that's interesting. Why? What the fuck? But this was good. And all this
Hey, if he does have a Lamborghini, you know why that I'm sitting here right now doing a podcast in the comfort of my own home and Owens is out there still getting fucking thrown through furniture? Because he's got a Lamborghini and I got a 2007 Ford Expedition with 302,000 miles on it.
It's better. In terms of the upkeep and everything, fancy cars are just not worth it, I'm telling you. Oh.
Well, how much does a Lamborghini cost to begin with? And why would anybody want to spend that much money on a fucking car?
What if you had a small dick?
Then I wouldn't need a fucking car at all. I would never go anywhere.
Because that would be your solution to having a small dick. I will never go anywhere.
I don't go anywhere anyway, but I used to go places. My dick hasn't shrunk and the same size it always was. Give or take, it's still hanging in there. I'm not saying it was impressive to begin with, but what was the point? Oh, the Lamborghini.
The point was you asked me the question, which makes me want to ask you the question. Are you interested in Owens and Cody?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not chopped liver, but the way that they're trying to make Owens as dangerous, I guess maybe because I know him. He's not a dangerous prize-fighting lunatic. If Powerhouse Hobbs was getting this push, I would be worried for Cody's safety or Orton or anybody else. But it's fucking Steen. But anyway, it's better than what they got going on the other side.
Well, that was a fine opening to SmackDown.
Yes, it was. And we'll get to this, but the Bloodline's still looking for a fifth guy. And they also had a United States women's title tournament. Now they've got another women's title. United States title tournament three-way match where whoever wins this goes to fight whoever else does something else. Bayley versus Candy versus B-Fab. And I said, good God, I have to watch a little bit of this for B-Fab, right? And within seconds, Bayley just bailed out and left Candy and B-Fab, and it looked like two drunk babysitters fighting over the key to the liquor cabinet.
See, Bayley had the same reaction you did. I just got to sit back and watch some of this match.
Yes. And I got to, AEW has girls that can't work doing everything, and the WWE has girls that can't work, but they don't do anything. They just kind of jerk each other around. Anyway, it was a strip club Jello wrestling match is what it was.
Oh, come on.
And we were half an hour in by the time the thing was over with.
Who won?
I don't know. I got tired of watching them,
What made you give up? At what point did you give up?
Just my lack of caring. They weren't doing anything funny, goofy, bad. It was just bad. So LA Knight does an in-ring promo and they're chanting for him and they love him. And he said Sami Zayn asked him to be the fifth guy at War Games, but it's not his fight and he hopes they kill each other. And he's got another open channel. He's got another open challenge going on. And they play music and here comes Escobar and the Lucha Heels. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Why are they continually giving him people to work with that nobody gives a shit about?
At this point, it's been a long time of that, hasn't it? We thought him getting the U.S. title was going to elevate him to another thing, and he's still just doing what he was doing.
What? And they're trying to stick him in with some of these people, I guess, thinking that they'll care about some of these people. But there are main event stars around here. Can he work with any of them?
Even if you don't want to put the belt on him, move him over to Raw and let him do some kind of feud with Gunther. Because people treat him like they want to be more into him, and then they're given no reason to continue to feel that way, but somehow it has not trickled down. It hasn't hurt his popularity. But eventually it's going to run out if they don't do something.
Well, and that's,
It can't just be the Bloodline segment's over, so now here's me wrestling whatever guy has nothing to do on the roster.
And I mean, the interview, Escobar's talking, and LA Knight jumps in, and he keeps the promo going where people are halfway into it. But then one of the Stooges jumps him. They go to the break. They come back. U.S. title, LA Knight versus Lucha Stooge. And this is what I'm talking about. LA Knight finally, he wins with the BFT, and he's celebrating in the ring, and suddenly he gets leveled by a guy in a black leather raincoat, and it's Shaky Nakamura. I had forgotten that he existed, charitably enough.
You know what? I fast forwarded through the segment after a while, which I regret because I like LA Knight, but I missed this. This is news to me. I didn't know.
Okay, no. That's why I thought, we were going, because we were just talking about they keep giving him people who gives a shit, and here comes who gives a shit.
You know what? I think people give more of a shit about Nakamura. This is very low praise, but I think the WWE fans give more of a shit about Nakamura than the Lucha Suits, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, and everyone else he's been tied up with for a long time. I'll take it.
But God, and again, how old is Shaky? He's got to be almost 60 now.
You do this every time, and it turns out he's a lot younger than you think. Shinsuke Nakamura. He is 44 years old. He's my age. He's my age.
As Mama Cornette would say, he's had a hard life.
Maybe I should do that with my hair. Interesting. He's 44. Hold on. How old is LA Knight? 42.
Okay, look at both of them physically and tell me there's only 2 years difference. What happened to Nakamura's chassis?
Now, LA Knight definitely could pull off like several years younger. Well, I'm surprised he's 42. That's crazy.
And Nakamura could pull off his fucking support hose with a little help from his private therapy nurse.
Now stop it. Now look, you say these things about some guys who really, like Ishii looks like a little old man. If someone told you that man is 68, you'd be like, well, he's in good shape for a 68-year-old little man. Nakamura looks a lot younger than that, so you're being unfair.
Oh, all right, then I'll go back to my previous description. He looks like the heel in a Raymond Chow kung fu flick.
Well, let's see where they go with this. It beats the tease of a feud with the Lucha Suits. Give it that.
Yeah, at least he got to beat somebody, before they lowered the boom on him. Anyway, we were at 9 o'clock. We were at 9 o'clock here in this program suddenly, and they're in Roman Reigns' locker room. Jay and Jimmy and Sammy, and Roman walks in. And Sammy, he's the one to, hey, we got nothing. We got no fifth guy. There's nobody. Nobody will do this. And Jay says, make the call. And then suddenly, the New Bloodline's music is playing, and they're seeing on the monitor that the New Bloodline are walking to the ring. So there's a lot of interaction here now with this.
Well, that reaction... The reaction when the Bloodline music hit and Roman's just like, what? Like, he looks a little worried. There's a monitor right next to him. So eventually he realizes it's there, and he turns and he looks, and then they go to that. It was, again, give Paul Heyman his Emmy. And the whole tease of, did you make that call? Have you had that call? You don't know exactly who it's with yet, but there's something going on, and it'll pay off. But they're starting to put that in everyone's mind right now.
But they didn't have time to make the call because the music played.
That's right.
Let the music play. So then Solo and his group are in the ring, and he tells Milwaukee to acknowledge him. Boo. And then suddenly Roman's music plays. They don't even need to fucking go out and say anything now. And the original tribal chief, the OTC, and his guys go to the ring, and they have the brief face-off, and they just break into an 8-way. And it's back and forth. Jacob lays the Usos out. And Solo goes to spike Sammy, but Roman spears Solo and gets a big pop, and Sammy dives on the heels. And then Roman and Fatu are in the ring. And they're circling each other. And we've got the OTC chance. And then suddenly, Bronson Reed levels Roman from behind and squishes him. And then Fatu gives him.
You're really reducing it. You're really they built it up so well, so they had that moment where Roman and Jacob Fatu were squaring off, and the fans were ready for it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And then Bronson Reed levels him and squishes him. And I told you, what did we do on the show we did last week, or whatever, or whenever we did one of the shows that we do every 2 days? I said I think they should have just gone 4-on-4. Because they've inserted Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins in where they're mad at each other, but they didn't really fit either group. And that's why when Bronson Reed comes in, they're like, fuck. Because now, but then Fatu gets back and gives him the ass in the face. And everybody else comes back in and gets in a big fight. And the heels kick the shit out of the baby faces because they're outnumbered. And Fatu gets his moonsault, and Bronson Reed gets his splash. But then Roman fights back against everybody, but Solo spikes him. And Fatu moonsaults him again. Reed splashes him. And security runs in, and the heels celebrate. But I don't know. What do you think? They've diluted the blood. The blood is no longer pure.
Well, I don't know if I would put it that way. But
many people are these days.
Are they putting Bronson Reed in the bloodline, or is it just for the Survivor Series match?
Well, I'm sure it's just for the War Games, but
I'm okay with it because you know what? There's a bigger story too that eventually has to play out with Rollins and Roman. Rollins still doesn't like Roman from the Shield and everything, so there's still something there that's the best stuff with Rollins. It isn't his goofy promos. It's teasing the fucking issues he has with everyone else. So I'm okay with it. I'd like to see where that goes.
So you're saying it's him. He's got issues with everybody.
I'm not saying it's him. I'm saying that's the most interesting thing about him.
Well, you don't know him personally. He's an expert in butterflies.
I don't know. I guess I just don't know. But
very interesting. But anyway, so yes, but here goes what's going on. The bloodline is, now they got to have the fifth guy. And so anyway,
the only way it's not Rollins is if it won't happen. But if it was Brock Lesnar,
but now because there's a connection through Heyman. So that would not technically, to me, be diluting the purity of the blood.
Because what's make the call? What's make the call to Heyman? Is it just, hey, we need you here in our corner?
He didn't say Heyman earlier. He said make the call and the music cut it off.
Based on
come back later on.
Based on the end of the show.
Well, should we go ahead and reveal the end of the show? Because it was a very short shot anyway. Is that at the very end of the show, there's Roman sitting in his room again, and he's sore, and he's all beat up, and he realizes he's got to do what he's got to do, and he gets out his fancy Dan phone, and he speaks into it. He says, call the wise man. And the place blows because they're watching it on the screen, right? And it's a big pop. And then he gets the number you have reached is not in service.
Which is better than when Paul used to pretend to be his own roommate.
Well, yeah. He's not here. I'll tell him when he gets back in. But and then everybody's, So now, sorry, wrong number.
So why is he trying to call the wise man? Is it just to be there in their corner? Is it because they need help getting a fifth partner?
They need advice. They need wiseness. They need wiseosity. And where do you get wiseosity from but the wise man?
Should Heyman return looking exactly the same, or would it be a disappointment if he didn't grow out his beard and let his hair turn white, and he comes back looking more wizardly?
He comes back looking like fucking Sika, is what you're saying?
I guess not.
What about if he came back weighing 178 pounds?
I don't think that will be happening. I don't think that's ever happened maybe in his career. But
hey, when I weighed 220, I had about 25 pounds on him.
The pop he got when they mentioned him, and when we talked about the top of the review, the things you remember from this show, that's really the thing you remember.
Yeah.
Is him trying to get the wise man on the phone, and he wasn't there. I'm lucky I saw it live because I went back to watch it a second time on the DVR, that one part, because I took it off mute because I was watching the Jake Paul Tyson thing. It cut off on my DVR. All we get is Roman coming into the dressing room, holding his ribs, and then it cuts off. Thank God I didn't have to rely on that. And it's a WWE thing. It's everywhere as soon as it happens, but...
Well, but you know what? That they milked it all the way till the end of the show. And it was just, a 30-second thing. So mine caught it and boom, right at the end of it froze up also. But it was very important. That's what it was.
So who do you think the fifth member will be of their team? Without knowing anything, because we're, a couple of weeks away. We'll do the preview next week.
If it wasn't going to be Seth, they wouldn't have done this business, I don't think. And I think it'll be Seth because of the necessity of him wanting to get his hands on Bronson Reed, but Brock would be fucking fabulous. Holy shit.
How about if they go to the ring with Seth and then Heyman shows up with Brock expecting to be the partner and then you have problems. See, that's the best thing about the bloodline stuff. You never really know where it's going exactly. You think you do, and they kind of go in a certain way, and then because it's classic Heyman. Heyman can't do endings. This doesn't need an ending.
Yeah.
Just keep it going. Like the days of our lives.
He can never wrap anything up, but he can keep it going for fucking ever.
That's right.
And does Heyman need to show up in person if it was Brock?
Yes.
We were thinking that Heyman would preface Brock returning, but maybe would Brock show up, in the clinch, having been sent by Heyman?
Heyman has to show up with Brock if it's a part of this. Or Heyman has to walk out and wave Brock out because everyone knows, even when Roman was feuding with Brock, remember? Brock was like, you didn't know I was here. I told him. They still had the relationship in the middle of that feud, Heyman and Lesnar on camera.
Well, and remember also, and by the way, we've still got CM Punk and Drew McIntyre that's floating around out there taking time off selling the last match.
Logan Paul, not around in a long time either.
Well, yeah, the way he fucking sucked up to Agent Orange, he could stay gone. But no, the point is what they mentioned that Punk was off limits because of respect to Heyman, right? Remember? They mentioned that when Punk first came back. So there's ways and things and ways and means that they could do. But anyway, going back to the show, because we didn't end the show yet. There's more in the show. Because Owens was in his car. And he's disappointed. They won't let him in the arena, but he got a call from Nick Aldis to be at SmackDown next week so they don't disappoint Cody, the Golden Boy. But when Owen shows up, he says he's just doing what everybody wants him to do, just doing his job. I'd like him to show up and do the job, but nevertheless. Brian, were the Street Profits baby faces again? I thought they were.
Not this week. I was pretty sure when I saw them come out that they were heels here.
Well, that's what I thought. They were heels a while back, but then I thought they were baby faces again. But now they were against Shelley and Sabin for the tag team title, and yeah. But then it didn't go long because Ciampa is mad that his little buddy Johnny Sameface is still friends with Shelley and Sabin, so Ciampa came in and shoved one of the Street Profits off the top rope and got a disqualification and posted the other one and then kicked the shit out of both of them. And here came little Johnny in, and Ciampa shoved the garden gnome on his ass and walked out of the ring. So now Shelley and Sabin tried to pick the Street Profits up and apologize to them. But Dawkins punched Shelley in the face and the Profits left. And if this breaks Ciampa and Gargano up, I'll kiss somebody. Just so I can bear to watch Ciampa again without having to see that
and his feud,
fucking little fucking cookie bacon fucking tree dwelling motherfucker standing next to him.
Well, that's who you're going to see him with in his feud with Gargano.
Oh, goddamn, I forgot about that.
They're not just going to break him up and then fire Gargano.
Well, that would be the optimum. Can they send Candy packing too along with that? And then anyway, the women's title was on the line with Naomi against the Refrigerator in the main event. And for some reason or another, Naomi and the Refrig were both down on the floor. So on the screen, in the back, Bianca and Jade could get beaten up by Liv and Rochelle. And then they went back to the match, and both of them were still selling on the floor, and the referee leaned over and gave Naomi the cue, and she got up. But then Tiffy attacked Naomi, and the Fridge went for a splash, and Naomi was up, and Fridge went to slam her off the ropes, and Naomi rolled through it for a 2 count. I thought they were going to kill both of them. And then Bayley jumped Tiffy, and Naomi kept getting 2 counts until finally the Refrigerator Samoan dropped her off the turnbuckle and gave her the bonsai 1, 2, 3. So that was exciting and thrilling.
And that was SmackDown.
The number you have reached is not in service. More on this later.
All right. Well, this is your show.
Well, you know what? It's 10 o'clock at night at that point, Eastern time, right, Brian?
Right.
It's time to get a good night's sleep.
For some, yes.
Well, you mean you didn't go right to bed right after SmackDown was over with?
Well, no, I had the boxing match or the boxing sham, whatever it was that I was going to watch.
Oh, what? The Helix Sleep mattress is coming to box also. So you could have watched them boxing and then unboxing. It's more exciting to watch the Helix mattress be unboxed than it is to watch Jake Paul boxing. I think that's safe to say. Is it not?
I mean, it was a fine little exhibition. I don't, it was not really a good boxing bout or anything.
Well, I tell you what, if one of them son of a guns got knocked out, you didn't need to be worried about them if they were falling on a Helix Sleep mattress. And that's why I think that Helix Sleep should, from now on, make all of the boxing and wrestling rings. Because every time somebody gets slammed, they'll just spread out in a cloud and go to sleep. And that's what you can do too, folks, because we've been ranting and raving about the greatness of the Helix mattresses for years now here on the program. We have brought you into our figurative bedrooms and told you how wonderful it is to sleep on a variety of these mattresses, no matter if you're odd-shaped or unnaturally large or morbidly obese. They've got stuff for you too. You don't need to be ashamed. Most mattress companies and mattress stores, the brick and mortar kind, those, Brian, if they see a person that weighs, say upwards of 395 pounds walk in the door, they call the police on them and make them leave.
Well, no, I don't think that's exactly true.
They say, you can't lay down on our mattresses, you big fat fuck, you're going to break something.
They wouldn't talk like that. No responsible salesperson would.
They have hundreds of people laying on these mattresses in these mattress stores every day.
Hundreds.
And then they'll just sell it to you and you'll take it home, and who knows where it's been. Actually, we know where it's been. It's been in the store, but who knows where the people that have been on it have been. And if you're too fat, they're going to kick you right out. They're not even going to sell you one because they're anti-fatites. And let's say you're 9 feet tall. This is a common problem. You can't find a mattress. The Helix Sleep people have the big and tall mattresses. So if you're Happy Humphrey level on a scale, or if you're Robert Wadlow level in height, it doesn't matter because they got one for you too. And the little kiddies. You can throw some of your kids on one of these mattresses and Well, they'll just be happy as
no-
clams. And
Your children
Sure.
can sleep on these mattresses every night safely and securely and comfortably with Helix Sleep.
well, yeah, but instead of giving them the little crumb snatchers their own phone or their own computer, who knows what kind of problem they can cause, just put them on these mattresses and they'll go right to sleep. And if they don't sleep, they've got a Velcro model where you can just put the little
No, they don't have that.
kids in a Velcro diaper and then just stick them on the mattress.
They don't have that. That is completely ridiculous. Of course, Helix Sleep has the finest mattresses, no matter what kind of mattress you want, whether it's for you, whether it's for your family. Perhaps you got a mistress in an apartment over the gas station. Whatever it may be, Helix Sleep is there for you.
Well, now, funny that you might have mentioned that because they also have mattresses that are self-cleaning. They run
what?
They run a mixture of peroxide.
I didn't say anything about that. I didn't say anything about that.
You're talking about the mistress. There's going to be some spillage, so you just press a button and it peroxides the whole thing.
I didn't say the mistress was in your home. I said she was in the apartment you put her in above the gas station.
You want to be able to clean the mattress in the apartment over the gas station.
Well, she's living there. Hopefully, she's only your.
Well,
mistress.
you're going to be on the mattress sooner or later, pal. You could get any number of things that would grow on your hindquarters. But anyway, folks, right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Now.
If you want to go to helixsleep.com, and who wouldn't, /JCE, use that code. And we've got an incredible, for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever holiday occasion, if it's your 47th wedding anniversary. The 47th anniversary is mattress. So whatever, you're going to save 25% off right now, site-wide, on any of the fine Helix Sleep mattresses tailored for the whole family. And you're going to get 2 free dream pillows with any mattress purchase that you've already taken 25% off of. And if you get a Luxe mattress or the Elite mattress, one of those from those collections, you're going to get a free bedding bundle, 2 dream pillows, a sheet set, a mattress protector in case you are giving this to your mistress, and that's all in the free bedding bundle. So 25% off and all this free stuff, you're pretty much set. All you're going to need is the baby oil and the whipped cream. helixsleep.com /JCE. Also some turkey gravy for Thanksgiving. You're going to need that.
That's right, with Helix Sleep.
They don't have the turkey gravy, though.
One more time,
what's at the store?
One more time, what's that promo code?
helixsleep.com /JCE for the bestest, most comfortable mattresses that you've ever slept yourself on. And they got nobody laying on them in the mattress stores either, especially fat people.
All right, once again, helixsleep.com /JCE. And this is your show.
Well, we got to talk about the Hall of Fame, don't we?
The Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame, to be specific.
Well, I was going to mention that, but it's the Hall of Fame, just in short version, just for everybody now, because it's the season for that. It always comes out right before Thanksgiving, so the people can argue about it over their family dinners. And is it getting a little bit complicated now? Is whatever fascination that Dave and Tony Khan share with numbers and percentages and ratings points and all this mathematical mumbo jumbo, has he got over most people's heads at this point?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I still get a ballot. I haven't voted in several years. I stopped voting. I stopped doing a show about, various voters talking about who they were voting for, because I really got fed up with, I realized this Hall of Fame is nonsense because of the voting body. And, I've seen various random people, even on Dave's message board, just say, oh yeah, I vote, here's where I vote. Who the fuck is this? They're not a reporter, they're not a historian, they're not a wrestler, active or retired.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the 4 categories of people that vote for this are current wrestlers, retired wrestlers, historians, and reporters.
Right.
And
And typically the reporters are the ones who vote, stupidly at times. And I'd like to know who would. I think there needs to be some sort of disclosure of how many people are voting.
Are Dave Meltzer's, proteges that he has taught how to be reporters.
Well, we don't know that. We actually don't know anything. And I think there should be some sort of disclosure about who is voting, how many people are voting, and who is voting. But I stopped voting because I thought it was ridiculous. And it started just becoming a frustrating thing to look at people who they're no-brainers, but especially based on people that are already in. Again, Morris Siegel. That was Morris Siegel, Roy Welch, and Wild Bull Curry are on the ballot because of me. Because I made that an issue. And none of them are still in the Hall of Fame. But Paul Bosch is, and Paul Bosch should be. But he can't be if Morris Siegel isn't. But Morris Siegel wasn't friends with Dave, so Morris Siegel wasn't in the first class of the Hall of Fame like Paul Bosch was.
Well, and here's part of the thing is that now, for a number of years, you would see, okay, this is the new class for the Hall of Fame. Okay, these are Hall of Fame wrestlers in pretty much anybody's book, names that supposedly the parameters are longevity, working ability, drawing power, historical significance, that kind of thing. And you most of the time would say, okay, these particular people probably are Hall of Fame wrestlers. But then over the last, 10 or 15 years now, he decided, well, enough people aren't getting in from Japan or Mexico or in other places around the world, because most of his readers were English-speaking readers who live in the United States, Canada, whatever. So he broke it down into U.S. and Canada modern, U.S. and Canada historical, Japan, Mexico, and the rest of the world. But he has somehow also figured out that to get inducted in the Hall of Fame, in the U.S. and Canada modern category, you need 274 votes. But in the U.S. and Canada historical category, you need 243 votes. In Japan, you need 169. Mexico, I guess the peso has been devalued. You only need 113.
But you can vote for all of them.
And the rest of the world, you need 127.
But you can vote for all of them.
But anybody from any part of the country can vote for it. That's what the fuck? Now it sounds like a goddamn AEW wrestling angle.
It's like Dave's star system. Dave can't really explain or justify the way that it's been done. And again, he can't justify or explain who he's given some of these ballots to. Jim, before we go over who got in, if you don't mind, I find this fascinating.
Okay.
Can I go over with you the list of the people who got below 60%, that's the threshold to get in, and above 45%, so right below getting in, if things had gone a few more votes from someone who declared themselves an expert in a certain region, and who knows what happens. Not getting in, 159 votes, Bobby Bruns. So that's 56.4%. A historical figure of incredible significance, especially when it comes to Japanese wrestling history, and Ricky Dozan. And of course,
Bobby Bruns, for people who may just have wandered in out of the rain, was not only a wrestler, but a successful booker and promoter from the Central States area who arranged the first major tours of Japan and found Ricky Dozan and basically was instrumental in starting pro wrestling in Japan. And he did a bunch of things over here in this country also.
Yeah, in St. Louis.
And he didn't get in. He was right under the cutoff with 159 votes. But then the guy underneath him, who didn't get in, got 218 votes. But Bobby Bruns had a 56.4% showing, and the 218 votes only had 53.8%. That's what the fuck is going on here?
And by the way, the person you're talking about who didn't get in with all those votes, that's the Junkyard Dog. And that's always been an annual issue. Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? He's up. He got 40% last year, 53.8% I guess, of the people voting for U.S. and Canada historical? Or is it modern? Is that modern or historical?
You would think he'd be modern.
Okay.
But nevertheless.
Well, under Junkyard Dog, Hayabusa with 150 votes, obviously the Japanese category, 53.2%. Dory Dixon with 99 votes, because that would be for Mexico. Not for anything he did here. That would be only for Mexico, 53.2% with 99 votes.
And I saw Dory Dixon when I was a kid on television. I didn't see him live, but he and Bobo Brazil were partners in a team for a while, blah, blah, blah.
He's one of the oldest living wrestlers right now.
Yes, but I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying. We can't possibly even read this entire list of people who didn't make it in, because it looks like, 100 fucking people.
It looks like a Hall of Fame. That's what it looks like.
Actually, no, it doesn't all, because some of the names, yes, but some, come on.
Right.
But, but he's got to put them up there. But it's this giant list. And you want to talk about who didn't get in, the just unders, but I think you got to compare it with who did get in first to see what the fuck. This doesn't make any sense. Because go ahead.
No, I'll let you go ahead.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that we are talking that Junkyard Dog didn't get in, that CM Punk was not voted in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. Okay, he's still active. Maybe they take that tactic. Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith.
As a team.
The British Bulldogs as a team.
Because Dynamite is already in. He was in the first class. David anointed him a member.
But then we've established that you can be singles and tags from the other Hall of Fames, whatever. Kevin and Kerry and David Von Erich. They didn't get in, but SEMA got in.
Now, a lot of the fans may not be too familiar with SEMA.
You think?
Can you... You want to explain to all the listeners who Hall of Fame wrestler SEMA is?
CIMA. I will have to go to the description because I don't fucking know. Hold on. Where is he described?
He's described somewhere in there.
Somewhere in here.
But he got 170 votes for Japan, which is 60.3%, up from 23% last year. So a major boost.
Oh, okay. He was a member of Ultimo Dragon's first training class in 1997 and quickly became the top star of the Toraman promotion. And then he appeared several times early in his career in WCW. And he feuded with Magnum Tokyo. And then Toryumon became Dragon Gate. He once had a 574-day run as Open the Dream Gate champion. But he was never considered a major promotion, nor drew the crowds that got people like Maeda, Takada, and Onita in. He
sounds like a Hall of Famer.
He was the guy that did the OWE in China. And when AEW started out, remember they had the little tiny...
Oh, they announced a big partnership with them.
Yes. But then their promotion OWE fell apart. But they went to GLEAT. GLEAT, GLEAT, another smaller promotion, apparently run by sheep. GLEAT? So this is a guy that's in the fucking Hall of Fame. But Junkyard Dog is not. Nor is CM Punk, nor the British Bulldogs, nor the Von Erich brothers, and we can go on.
Another one I think is important to bring up this year, specifically for not getting in the Hall of Fame for the reasons other people did. And by the way, Morris Siegel, who I mentioned earlier, 195 votes, 48.1%, up from 31% last year. See, again, I think certain people of a certain era just need to be put in because it was an oversight. Not like on the ballot and every year it has to be another fucking effort to re-educate or educate for the first time anyone on basic wrestling history. But not getting in the Hall of Fame, first year on the ballot, 220 votes. Cody Rhodes.
And again, the most popular babyface and the world champion of the hottest promotion on the planet, who has a remarkable turnaround from being on AEW television and people going, because everybody was, to walking in there and having great matches, drawing record crowds, doing, whatever the fuck. But Cody Rhodes doesn't get voted into this, but SEMA.
Well, more importantly, and we'll talk about this one, I'm sure the Young Bucks got in. And what I'm saying is, if
that was a point that
if you get credit, if part of your Hall of Fame credential is credit for your role in being there with Tony when AEW was created, they can't get the credit if Cody doesn't.
Well, yes, because part of Dave's justification for the Young Bucks going into his Hall of Fame there, after he's been their press agent for all these years and tried to push for it, is that, well, the historical significance and the game-changing aspect of them and AEW, well, Cody did it too. And Cody was the business mind. Cody was the one that was trying to be a producer and trying to be an EVP and trying to fucking help these guys figure out how to do television.
He's the only one who grew from that. Again, where are the Young Bucks today in 2024? They've never meant less. They don't draw. People don't react to them. People are sick of them. They don't sell merch. Everything that made them great on the indies died completely on a national stage. And they're dead in the water. And people don't want to see them. And they keep having to be repackaged with the hopes that anything will work. And it doesn't work because they're morons. But again, if they're in the Hall of Fame, because the only real things they have going for them are they've won Dave's Awards a number of times from his voters.
Yeah, this unprecedented streak of Tag Team of the Year awards certainly qualifies them. What the fuck? It was the same people giving them the Tag Team of the Year awards.
They drew some nice crowds on the indies. Again, where people still don't want to accept the fact that Tony Khan was going to start this company one way or another without the Bucks. It was with or without the Bucks. He was going to start this company.
Yeah.
But we all want to pretend that the Bucks were a key part of it. Again, if they are, Cody is, more than Omega. If they are, Cody is. And what have they done since then? It's a disaster. Every time they're on the show, the ratings go down. It's a disaster. Meanwhile, Cody is one of the biggest drawing cards in the business today. So that's one of the issues
but
also with having active wrestlers on the ballot. And I'm against it in general. And I know no one ever really retires, but
that's the problem.
I think Young Bucks and Cody are all in the same category. They shouldn't be on the ballot while they're in their 30s. If you're in your 30s, unless you're like in a wheelchair, you shouldn't be on the ballot.
Well, but and again, Dave was able to convince how many votes they had? 280 people that the Young Bucks have done all this, and because it's his fascination. And I'm hold on. I'm going to quote this. There is the argument on the other side that as far as being national stars, they'd be well behind people like Edge, Orton, and Goldberg, none of whom came close, and even Owens and Zayn. But one could argue their importance in making ROH a place you can go and make a living.
What?
And then AEW, a place where guys can make the best money other than modern WWE in history, is a difference maker. So
No, that's actually not right at all, Dave. Jesus. They don't get credit for that. They made all of a sudden they changed ROH so that people were making a living. The houses went up, people got paid more. But again, we talked about before the categories. Amongst the reporters, whoever they may be, the Young Bucks came in. Where are they on this list?
Hold on, I'll give it to you.
Number two on the list.
Young Bucks second on the list among reporters, 14th among historians, 14th among active professionals, and with retired professionals, they didn't place.
So again, who is voting?
Their personal friends.
Right. See, that's the other issue. If you are a wrestling reporter, and that doesn't mean you're someone who knows much about history, and that's not to put anyone down, but there are all sorts of wrestling reporters. If you're a wrestling reporter and you're covering these people, if you're going to these events, if you're trying to get into the media scrum, if you're at the hotel trying to talk to these people, or at the conventions, you may not vote the right way. See, that's the problem. If you're a reporter, it doesn't mean you're knowledgeable. You may just be voting for the people you have access to. I think it needs to be disclosed who the reporters are, quite frankly, and the historians too. I mean, the historians list isn't as offensive as the reporters list, but I think Dave needs to disclose how many people are voting, and other than active wrestlers, and we can discuss whether active wrestlers should be voting, who's voting? The Baseball Hall of Fame doesn't have the active baseball players voting. That'd be a disaster. You know how many nitwits there are in locker rooms?
And well, besides that, a couple guys can say, hey, I'll vote for you. Do you vote for me?
Yeah.
But and let's tell the people who actually got in.
Yes.
Now that we've been doing 20 minutes on this, Roman Reigns was at the top and should be, for God's sake. And then in second place, Shingo Takagi. Now, Roman Reigns got 307 votes. Shingo came in second, but he only needed 185. And does he tell us who the fuck Shingo Takagi is?
I think we saw him on AEW, didn't we?
Oh, good Lord. Well, in that case, you know where their minds are at. And then number 3 with 291 votes, just under Roman Reigns, Paul Orndorff. Yes, Paul Orndorff is a fucking Hall of Fame wrestler under any circumstances. Not only for longevity, and would have been longer if he hadn't had the nerve injury, and drawing power and working ability. I saw him in 1977. Jarrett brought him to Tennessee because Eddie Graham and they had been training him, and they wanted him to get some experience. They showed the footage of him and Bob Backlund working out, doing that Hiro Matsuda fucking old time shit where they had their legs interlocked and they were doing back bridges and then sit-ups off of each other. Just these amazing calisthenics. He looked like a goddamn beast. He drew against Lawler in the main events for the Southern title after 3 weeks. Just on TV, beat a couple people and boom. And in the next 4 years, he worked in Mid-South against DiBiase and Roop. He was in the Carolinas, World Tag Team Champions with he and Snuka. Went back to Florida, worked for Eddie Graham. He worked main event and hung with the very best talent in the business right off the bat. And ended up being Hulk Hogan's most lucrative house show run. And
main event of WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, I mean, did everything. So, yes, Paul Orndorff. And yes, Roman Reigns. In the middle is Shingo Takagi. And then also made it Johnny Rougeau, who honestly, he may predate even some of our elderly audience, but he's a Hall of Fame guy because of the drawing power and the family, the dynasty that he established in Montreal. But the Young Bucks got more votes than Johnny Rougeau did. And then Los Hermanos Dinamita got in with 115 votes.
They should have been in a long time ago too, quite frankly.
Well, but you know,
that's Cien Caras. No, I mean, in terms of Lucha Libre, that's Cien Caras and his brothers. They were a big deal.
Well, yes, but maybe it needs to be a English-speaking Hall of Fame, a Spanish-speaking Hall of Fame, and a Japanese-speaking Hall of Fame.
Well, I think the issue is just being able to vote for anyone, and then it's classified into the regions. If that's the case, it should be just voters from that region, not just wrestlers who appeared in that region sometimes. Spiros Arion didn't get in. He got 97 votes. But that's, less than a lot of other people under him.
Well, yeah, well, and let's finish up. SEMA got in Johnny Saint because he is a favorite because of his style and, originating a lot of that type of thing. But was Johnny Saint ever a big draw in England?
Well, the big draw was Big Daddy, and he's not in.
Well,
he'll never be in.
Before Big Daddy. I'm talking about the big draws. Are we rewarding technicians now? In that case, is Tony Charles in the Hall of Fame if we're just rewarding technicians?
What is SEMA in for? Realistically, is CIMA
apparently running his fucking company in China out of business with $1.5 billion potential customers.
Well, before that, he's in there for his style. He's not in there for drawing. It's not like, oh, he was a major draw. I mean, that's the other thing about Takagi, too. Takagi debuted in like 2005. So he's a Hall of Famer and a main eventer in an era where Japanese wrestling fell off the map, had to like almost get rebooted, and now is in another hole. So, you know, someone being a Hall of Famer from Japan for the last 20 years is a whole lot different than someone who came up in the 70s, 80s, or even 90s.
When it was a major business.
Yeah, I mean, CIMA came up in the 90s, but at that point, there, you know, the indies had flooded Japan or were about to, and a lot of them were doing this lucha style that Ultimo Dragon taught everyone. But again, CIMA, I mean, it's hard to justify a CIMA when you can't have a Bobby Bruns or a Junkyard Dog. It's hard to justify a Young Bucks when CM Punk and Cody Rhodes aren't in.
Or the Steiner brothers.
Or the Steiners, who were the greatest fucking tag team.
Let me, and by the way, one more person made it in, Bobby Davis, the manager, and obviously that is another oversight. The inspiration for Bobby Heenan and myself and every other Weasley manager. But okay, let's examine that the Young Bucks made it in, CIMA made it in, Shingo Takagi made it in, but as I mentioned, the Steiner brothers, way down on the list. The Steiner brothers aren't in, but the Young Bucks are. The British Bulldogs, the Von Erich brothers. Here, and to be honest with you, Mark and Jay Briscoe, where it did not make it in, they're on the list. Everybody knows how much I liked Mark and Jay Briscoe as people and as talents, but they aren't Hall of Fame wrestlers. They're not a Hall of Fame tag team. If they had been able to go to the WWE and been anywhere near themselves, it would be a no-brainer, but they didn't get the opportunity. So we can't let sentiment cloud. Did they have the talent to be? Absolutely. Did they have the opportunity to be Hall of Famers? No. So we can't let sentiment cloud these things. But Adrian Street.
Doesn't matter. Hey, listen, if Ring of Honor success with the Young Bucks is a part of what someone needs for a Hall of Fame, then you got to think about that with the Briscoes.
Well, but what I'm saying is the opposite point, is that the Bucks don't deserve to be involved. Right. And
no, I'm saying it works both ways. I agree with you.
Well, yeah. And the Briscoes deserve to be involved a lot more than the Bucks because at least they were a better team for longer. But no, and I love Adrian Street. I can't say Hall of Fame wrestler with some of these other names.
He got one more vote than George Gordienko.
Yeah.
That's the same category.
Wild Bull Curry that you mentioned earlier. Seriously, fucking hell. Wild Bull Curry. One of the most famous pro wrestlers in the history of the sport. Longevity, he main evented from the late 30s to the mid 70s.
Late 70s.
Drawing power off the charts in various eras with and without television.
In various territories.
Various territories. Working ability, we've seen it. He had been a former boxer and a police officer. He looked like he was punching the fuck out of people. And one of the great, Dave said this one time, about Gorilla Monsoon, one of the all-time classic ring names, where you're telling me that Wild Bull Curry isn't the same thing. He fits all, and he got 30% of the vote. Roy Welch that you mentioned is a Southern Toots Mont. He's one of 5 people really in the 40s that pretty much established booking offices that kept the business fucking going. Cowboy Bob Ellis did not make it. One of the biggest baby faces in Jim Barnett's big Midwest territory that we talk about, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, worked all over the country, drew money, main evented everywhere. He was so over in Indiana from drawing 10, 12,000 people in the late 50s, he was still Bruiser's world champion in 1974. He was still drawing 10,000 fucking people. Iron Sheik didn't make it. John Moxley was on the ballot. Thank God he only got 26% of the vote, so there is some justice. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan is not a Hall of Fame wrestler after a 40-year career and booker and wrestler and blah, blah, blah.
And again, Dave recently added tag teams. So you look at the tag teams here, I'm not a believer in Tully and Arn being in the Hall of Fame only because of the longevity. It
was a year and a half.
It was 2 years at the most. The Hardys, Steamboat and Youngblood, Hart Foundation,
Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, Steamboat and Youngblood, Hardy Boys,
Gordman and Goliath,
Mad Dog and Butcher Vachon.
It's every famous tag team ever isn't in the Hall of Fame.
Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch.
Inoki and Sakaguchi, so it's not even just limited to American tag teams like the Steiners being ignored. It's all over the world.
And the Young Bucks are in this. And you know what? I said it earlier. I don't want to be a part of a fucking club that would have me for a member. If these people consider the Young Bucks more significant
how much do you
than all those tag teams.
I'll bet you Dave renames his Tag Team of the Year award and the Year-End Awards after the Young Bucks. I'll bet you he does. He did it for Bryan Danielson. He did it for Lou Thesz. He did it for Ric Flair.
He can make it the Young Bucks Schlong Schlurper Award. Here's other singles. SEMA. SEMA is in the Hall of Fame, but here's who's not. The Mongolian Stomper. Pampiro Firpo. Bullet Bob Armstrong. Killer Carl Cox. Bill Goldberg that we mentioned before. I mean, it's sad is what it is.
The idea that Goldberg's not in a Hall of Fame and the Young Bucks are, considering national fame, business. I mean, Goldberg did more business in 2 years than the Young Bucks did in their entire career put together. They've been paid more because they found a sucker, but Goldberg did more business.
That's the whole thing behind this is what people forget is that there has never been a case in the 125-year history of organized professional wrestling anywhere in the world, much less this country, where some guy would just say, I'm going to spend several $100 million to book my own wrestling company, and boy, howdy, maybe I'll make a profit sometime, but I don't really care. It's never happened before. It's not going to happen again. And I mean, I'm sorry, but anybody that thinks that just because the two members of the Lollipop Guild from Rancho Cucamonga might not have been available, that he wasn't going to fucking do this. He was going to do this. I talked to him, and I can vouch for the fact that he was goddamn intent on doing this. But anyway, I mean, it's gotten ridiculous
But this is why I don't vote anymore, because then you feel like your vote means nothing because you realize it's you up against a wall. It's you up against an entire voting body.
And boy, that sounds familiar. It's us up against a wall of a bunch of fucking lunatics that are voting.
When Tony Schiavone gets 126 votes, who is using a position on their ballot? You're allowed to vote for what, 10 people?
Tony Schiavone got one more vote than Wild Bull Curry did.
And he got 5 more votes than Roy Welch.
But I just saw this. He only got 7 less votes than Randy Orton. SEMA is in the Hall of Fame. Randy Orton is not in the Hall of Fame.
You know, but on the other hand, I'm not even saying this is a joke.
Wait a minute, Randy Orton, longevity? He's been there for 23 fucking years, right?
Right.
Drawing power. I don't know what else to say there. Incredible worker. Probably the best consistent worker they've had for 20 years. What did Heyman say one time? They said, who's the 5 wrestlers you'd sign to start a new promotion? Randy Orton, Randy Orton, Randy Orton, Randy Orton, and Randy Orton. And so what am I meant? Longevity, great worker. drawing power.
I think for a lot of people from that era, even though he currently goes into this era of WWE, they may not get the credit they deserve, and it's hard to figure out who gets what credit for a lot of the big houses when it was brand-based as opposed to wrestler-based. And Cena's a clear-cut guy. Orton, Batista, like there are certain guys that you have to sit and think about, you know, what was them and what wasn't, I think. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. Again, he's very low on this list. He's low.
Because he doesn't do backflips and he makes fun of the people who do, and this base here that Dave has cultivated over time.
What I was going to say before, though, is, all kidding aside, if there's a Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame, the Young Bucks belong in a Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame. If it's a Hall of Fame for people that have been championed in the Observer, raved about in the Observer, given star ratings that even people who are friends with them at times admit are just, it's Dave masturbating all over himself because he loves them. If there was ever going to be a Dave Meltzer Hall of Fame, their first ballot, I'm surprised it took him this long, quite frankly. Because Dave, it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy with the Young Bucks. Dave anointed them, he chose them, went to war with people who didn't accept it. Remember, it got to the point where Dave was defending Joey Ryan's act, only because he was friends with them.
Yes.
So I think they belong in a Dave Meltzer Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame, but it's hard for me, you know, I like to think I know my shit, and it's hard for me to look at a lot of these names and not go, it's not even a question. Like, Dave should have put them in the first class. To me, that's the standard. If they should have been there in the first body, in whatever it was, 97, 98, I forget when, 96, forget when he started it. You know, Morris Siegel, Roy Welch, how are they going to get voted in? How the fuck is that going to happen? How's Wild Bull Curry ever going to get voted in? It isn't going to happen.
That's like Abner Doubleday not being in the Baseball Hall of Fame if Roy Welch and Morris Siegel are not in it.
By the way, added to next year's ballot, Masaki Mochizuki.
What?
Bill Dundee.
Wait, what? Hold on.
I don't know anything about
Masaki Mochizuki?
I am not familiar with Mr. or Mrs. I'm actually not even sure. I don't know anything about Mochizuki. That's my point. Bill Dundee, added to the ballot. Gorilla Monsoon, added to the ballot.
Wait, he's not again, how would Gorilla Monsoon not be in a goddamn Wrestling Hall of Fame?
I'll tell you why, and I think people will probably reevaluate him or evaluate him for the first time a little differently next year when Brian Solomon's book comes out. But I think a lot of people don't think of him as being a force behind the scenes for Vince McMahon Sr. and important for Vince Jr. But they just think of him as the commentator who, again, go back to the Observer. I was a kid in the 80s and the 90s. I liked Gorilla Monsoon as a commentator. It didn't bother me. But it bothered Dave a whole lot. And it bothered a lot of the readers of the Observer a whole lot because he was Gorilla Monsoon. It was a different kind of thing. But he'll be added next year.
But as far as his drawing power as a wrestler for that incredible run and being the, a partner in the Northeast Territory for so long and making so much fucking money, he was the highest paid pro wrestler probably in the world at one point.
Yeah. He may have been one of the highest paid guys in the WWF National Expansion because of the deal he had where he was getting paid on every single show that happened every single day of the week.
Yeah.
And also think about the position he was put in. Buddy Rogers just declared that he was too sick to work or he left or whatever it was, and they needed an opponent for the new champion Bruno, and they created Gorilla Monsoon with Wild Red Berry. And it worked. And it is you brought it up before, one of those legendary names. My dad did not like wrestling. He knew who Gorilla Monsoon was. But he's not in. Next year added to the ballot, Jesse Ventura. Io Shirai. Gilbert LeDuc.
Who is Gilbert LeDuc?
I don't know, so I can't mock it one way or the other.
Are you fucking kidding me? What is he? Was he the illegitimate fucking cousin of Joe and Paul?
Well, there's a lot of work still being done by historians to uncover a lot of the history of European wrestling and stuff. Maybe it's part of that. Drew McIntyre headed to the ballot next year. Steve Gray will be on the ballot, as well as Ted Boy Marino, Les Kellett, and Los Infernales, as well as FTR and Mercedes Moné.
Oh my God.
Oh, and dropped from the ballot because they got less than 10% of all votes from a region. Asuka, Kevin Owens, the Usos, Sid Vicious, Bray Wyatt, Sami Zayn, Kento Miyahara, and Psycho Clown. So they will no longer be on the ballot.
And I mean, what did poor Sami Zayn do to these people? Because, I mean, you can't even argue that he's not really a Hall of Fame guy because we're holding to a higher standard. So I'm not putting Mark and Jay Briscoe in. I'm not putting Sami Zayn in. But less than 10%? It seems like he'd be the Buckaroos fans kind of guy.
The other thing, too, is, again, we're talking about the middle of these wrestlers' careers. Again, the Young Bucks right now are dead on arrival. People don't want to see them. I don't even know if they want to see themselves, because they know it's true. But they're in. The Bloodline stuff is playing out as we speak, and it's the biggest thing in professional wrestling for a long time now. It's not just Roman. Again, I'm not a fan of the Usos in the ring. But the Usos then got kicked off the ballot too, along with Sami Zayn. Everyone not named Roman got in, and the Usos and Sami Zayn got kicked off the ballot. Think about that. But as this is playing out, that's my point. Evaluating the Usos right now, I would say no. But who knows where we're going to be in 10 years? You know, if they do more big business with this thing, and you look back and you realize that Jey Uso and Sammy at times, but really Jay and Jimmy were major players in everything with Roman, you know, you may evaluate it a bit differently.
I think a lot of these people are evaluating things differently.
Bob Caudle got less votes than Tony Schiavone. Bob Caudle got 69 votes. Schiavone got 126. That's the problem. People like the idea of Schiavone more than actually his awful commentary. But the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame 2024 class, congratulations to all the new inductees.
Let's give them a big hand. Yeah. Ha!
Jeez. But there's a reason why people like me and, others aren't voting anymore. But that was the Observer Hall of Fame, and this is your show.
And it has been my show, but it's not anymore because I'm going to end it so we can come back and do your show. If there's no more questions that you have for me, then you're free to leave. And thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.